Yeah.
Well, it used to be on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I think I know.
Yeah. I did it once. All the early stuff is now raining out. It's usually what's happening now. It's raining out and then washed off. And it's not snow, so it's cold. It's all over. But again, it's like consistent again. Same thing happened last year.
Yeah.
What's that? Oh yeah, it's driven back.
They weren't making snow.
They have that new machine, weird machine.
Oh, did
They
they?
spent time. It's like a tractor trailer. So give you a
past 6 o'clock, and a quorum here. We'll convene the meeting of the Westborough Select Board. For all those that would like to join us, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, I'd like to thank Westborough TV for live streaming and recording this for future use. And I will now open it up for open forum if anyone is here for open forum. Boyd.
Boyd Conklin, 8 Water Street. So we've been talking on Facebook, and maybe Shelby's the only one on Facebook, so she said this would be the place to bring this stuff up. Anyways, one of the things I'd like to do again is, like I had the article on the warrant, get rid of the special runoff tax. Also, cutting other expenditures. We've got a new administration on the federal level, so hopefully all the net zero, zero carbon stuff that the select board has been involved in, all of those grants and subsidies will disappear on the federal level. Maybe that's 90% of where you guys have been getting the money for the grants and subsidies from. So I imagine Maura Healy on the state level is probably really going to have to scramble to even come up with the 10% for the grants and subsidies that Westborough has been chasing, along with Sustainable Westborough and on that thing. Also, I was hoping that perhaps the critical race theory and diversity, equity, inclusion departments throughout the town could be gotten rid of for the funding. So a lot of that is with the school committee's purview. I see we have, I guess, about a 5.5% increase this year in the school budget is what they're going to come up with at the next town meeting. So hopefully we can cut some of this, also this indoctrination with the like zero carbon stuff and scaring the kids with the doom and gloom. And then on to the 1500 Union Street Community Center. I had an article on the warrant last time to keep the senior center where it is and not move it to the community center. So looking at the pricing and how much all this stuff is going to cost at the community center, and looking at economics and the thought of sunk costs, that perhaps we can get rid of that 1500 Union Street property and in the long run be a lot better off, instead of looking to spend 20 to 40 to 60 whatever million on it with financing. At this point, one should always look at the possibilities with this thing, no matter how much is already sunk in, type thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conklin. Anyone else here for open forum? Welcome, Joanne. Aramini.
Hi, Joanne Aramini, 7 Meadow Road. 3 points for tonight. The first point is last Friday, I sent an email to everyone, excuse me, with some attachments, 5 attachments for preparation for the January BWALT meeting. And I'm learning that sometimes not all that material finds its way to everybody. I just want to make sure that everybody got it with the 5 attachments. Okay, great, thank you. It was a lengthy email, which brings me to my second point. I wanted to share my customer experience in trying to access this public information. We've done a lot of research on it. So we started by looking at minutes of meetings, and we found that 85%, and that's being very generous, of the time that the committees and boards are not submitting their meeting minutes according to the regulations. So then we need to ask for the information, And we do that, and we're told that the town has up to 10 days to give us that information, which is per the regulation, and that's fine. And then when we get that information, sometimes the content is very vague, and you really can't tell what was going on. Sometimes the content is still in draft form, hasn't even been approved, and we're talking way back, and other times the information is missing, okay? Then we read the minutes, and we find out that documents are referenced inside the minutes, and we try to access that information. That information is not kept with the minutes of the meeting, and again, that's okay per the regulations. It's kept in various departments within the town. So we request that information. Again, we're told that the town has up to 10 days to give us that information. So my questions and my concerns about all that is, what is the process for ensuring that committees and boards are compliant with the regulations that they're supposed to be following? Do we do any auditing on that? How do we hold those people accountable for getting the job done? The second thing is the information we would get in 10 days would be right at the end of 10 days. And that's within the regulation. But regulations really, it's like the bare minimum of what you need to comply with. And Westborough always seems to strive for excellence and kind of go above and beyond. So I'm just wondering why we don't strive to exceed. In our research, we asked other towns for information. We would get it in 2 hours. 2 hours. So there's something with the process that doesn't seem very organized, and it doesn't seem very efficient to me. And I'm just asking that somebody look at that, because I kind of expect excellence from Westborough, because that's what we give our school department and all our other departments, and I don't understand why, from a customer service perspective, we don't get that as well as the taxpayer. Third point, thank you for everything that you do. I know sometimes it might not seem like it, but we do appreciate it. I know you give a lot of your time, and I know you get paid nothing, barely, to do this, and I know that you have full-time jobs and families outside of this, so really, thank you very, very much for all your help this year, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mrs. America. Thank you. Kevin? Mr. Barry?
Good evening, hope everybody's well. Kevin Barry, 8 Indian Pond Road. I guess first off, I just want to reiterate Joanne's comment about disclosure and getting information. Been frustrating. It's even become the case on a different project that I've been working on, that they had to reconvene a committee to go back over meeting notes that I was requesting to kind of do some more information. So it's been very frustrating. Tonight, I just want to spend a little bit of time. I know you've got all that document that we sent over. I want to focus on kind of the transparency or lack of transparency, and more on the financial aspect things I've found. I did a kind of full kind of financial forensics, if you will, as much as I could get at. I did do a request from the town. I got great information, and thank you for that. But I think first and foremost is it hasn't been divulged and full disclosure as far as the overall total cost of this project to the general public. We're talking $25.4 million as quoted for through the feasibility study, plus another $10 million technically to complete that, to get full connectivity to Southborough. So you're talking $35 million of a project for a 7 to 7.5 mile length of extension. As far as some things I found, just to kind of illustrate from my notes, first was section 5. That's the first section that's been completed. There was a celebration on it, commemoration on it over at West Park Drive. Begrudgingly, the president of Cruise Capital, and obviously this is all a privately funded and had some grants, but he begrudgingly and irritating announced, and it's in public record as far as recording, that they were $1 million over budget. I don't know what the total cost was, but you're talking over $1 million for that section, which technically is only 4/10 of a mile and will preclude itself for additional funding because it's only 8 feet in width, where for a multi-use path for funding and grants, it's got to be 10 feet at the very minimum. Section 1 is now, I think, in 75% design phase. Excuse me. The only thing I could find in relation to direct expense for BWALT is an overall, first it was, the information was given to us by town officials when we had a private meeting with Director of Planning and Director of Conservation. That totals about $4 million, or what the exact part of $4 million is related to BWALT, but we're talking about $4 million. Now we're at section 2, which is 1.67 miles. What was spent already is over $500,000. It was $550,000 with a town match. So with that 25% design, it's projected to be about $6 million in construction costs. At 1.67 miles, that would put it at $3.9 million per mile for construction for 1.67 miles. In presentations that you've received in different time periods, it's been estimated that the average cost is $1 to $2 million. So we're talking almost $4 million, twice the average amount, which is crazy. Excuse me. And just a couple things that I found is basically in matching up what funding has come from for town meetings and warrant articles, close to $800,000 has been spent already by the town. About $700,000 has been used for design and engineering and study. Of that $800,000, about $366,000 has been transferred directly from town funds, from what I can see from my numbers. So in essence, we're talking about $10.5 million for Otis Corridor and all the way over to Park Street are part of this project. So it's just a little excessive, I think. So when you put in terms of the amount of time and effort we spent with the Community Development Center, which is upwards of $35 million, the library renovation, and then the golf building renovation, where the town is spending a lot, citizens are concerned, and they should be made well aware of what this ultimate cost is. You know, they already narrowly voted for the Community Development Center for that additional $1.1 million, and for the golf building renovation at $200,000, the town voted it down. So I'm sure they would be very interested to see this project in its entirety and see what's going on and how much spending would be put forth. Thank you again. Thank you for your time. And as Joanne said, I hope you guys have a very good holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here for open forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 2, the request to waive sewer privilege fees for subsidized housing units at 18 to 30 Lyman Street. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mark Donahue on behalf of Colangelo Massachusetts Real Estate. Just by way of background, very briefly, the Colangelo family moved forward earlier this year to obtain approval for 132 rental units within their retail plaza at the intersection of Route 9 and Lyman Street, a mix of studio, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms. As part of the discussion with the planning board at that process, the applicant volunteered to increase the affordable number of units to 25% or 33 of the units committed to it. That achieved, particularly on a larger scale for the town, allowed all 132 units to be included in the subsidized housing inventory for the town for determination by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. The Colangelos are moving forward to assemble financing, relocate some tenants, and move forward with the myriad pieces to put together. We are in the final stages of finalizing a grant agreement with the Affordable Housing Trust, which has been very generous to assist. And the purpose we're here this evening is to request from this board waiver of the applicable connection fees as to the 33 affordable units. We do have an agreement that is being circulated for signature with the Department of Public Works with regard to sewer since the imposition of the moratorium. That does provide for the payment of 2 different amounts to assist the town with regard to the infrastructure. The payment of $515,000 for sewer connection permits, subject to any reduction for the 33 units that your board may be willing to grant, and an additional contribution of $297,000 when we apply for the sewer connection, which will be used for a town study for inflow and infiltration. So in accordance with your policies and procedures with regard to privilege fees, you've noted the benefit that can be afforded by a waiver of the fees for these particular units, and we respectfully request that waiver as to the 33 affordable units.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just for clarification, Christy, so the sewer connection fee reduction would be 30, what would the net calculation be? And is it from the 515 or is it 515 plus 297?
It's from the 515,000 if I could. I have not done an exact calculation as to what
It's
it
from
would
the
be.
515.
Yeah, the 297 is not subject to reduction.
Thanks.
And it scales based on the number of
Size.
bedrooms in each
Size.
unit.
Right.
Thank you, thanks.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
So I move to waive the water and sewer connection fees for the 33 affordable units at 1830 Lyman Street.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think it would just be helpful at the end. I would be interested in understanding what that net reduction is once it's all done at some point. If we could, the board could just get that in an email. Thanks.
Any further? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, sewer moratorium update, our DPW director. Welcome, Chris. Lots of electronics up there tonight.
Are you guys looking at this screen?
Looks good, yep.
Can you see anything there?
Yes.
or-
Yes. We see the actual sewer flow analysis update, title slide.
I don't know if we
Looks
need
good.
it on that one.
Oh, because this goes to the splitter.
That one says HDMI 2. Do we need to go to HDMI 2 up there?
Could you source?
The splitters.
So,
What for folks on?
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It would be
We
more
have it in the
More
packet
up
if
there
you want
than
to
down
just
here.
plug directly into
Yeah.
the projector and not go through the switch. Because it's not seeing anything from the switch.
Yeah, I didn't set up the switch, so that's the challenge right now.
So maybe we'll just do.
Yeah, but if we take it off the switch, you're not going to see it here.
That's okay.
Yeah, we have it in our
okay.
packet.
You sure?
Yep.
Yeah, we have it
Okay.
in the packet.
We can turn if Chris says this is a new slide.
So what are we doing?
This. We're gonna do this. Do you mind plugging that HDMI one? You can just. Your angle is better than mine. It should be right there. Alright. You just need to share.
We don't have that.
Do what?
You just need to share your.
That's his background.
I know, I'm kidding. It's pretty funny.
There we go.
We unhooked the splitter. So he's going directly into.
We were only getting the picture there, and it was blue screen up there.
Do you just want to leave it like
Yeah,
that?
we're-
Yeah,
That's fine.
We can leave it
Yeah,
like
okay.
that. We got a packet, so.
Thanks, Walter.
All right. Good evening, Chris Pan, Director of Public Works. Joe Pagdor is with me, Assistant Town Engineer. And we are here to give an update on our sewer flow analysis that's been ongoing. Here's what we're going to talk about. I'll just briefly recap what's happened to date, and then I'll talk about our updates, and then we'll talk about next steps. So just to remind everybody, this is part of a bigger project, a comprehensive wastewater management plan update. This is the component where we're looking at needs, and that's kind of the important part that we're focused on and have been focused on for the last really 18 months, 2 years. And early on, the data indicated we might be overcommitted in terms of what flow we've allocated across users, and the data has borne that out. And so we implemented a moratorium, or you implemented the moratorium in May, and it's set to expire in April 30, dependent on what recommendations are made. And then we have the summary of our treatment plant limits. So this is what we presented to the board back in July. And the key point are the two highlighted red circles. So the orange, column 1, reflects our limit of amount of flow we can send to the treatment plant. The blue indicates what we've permitted. Permitted is probably we should probably interpret that more loosely than like the actual permit, because there's a long history related to the allocation of flow, and it's not all documented precisely, but in general terms, the blue highlights what we've committed to or allocated across the town for flow. And you can see the difference, column 2 to column 1, so 4.27 million to 2.89. It exceeds 2.89 by a substantial amount, which means we've, on paper at least, over committed our flow. So that's where we started back in July. This is where we are now. So you can see those numbers in blue are a little closer, not exactly aligned with 2.89, but closer to 2.89. That's due to a number of deliberations we had through workshops. So if you remember at the last meeting, we talked about some workshops we would conduct internal with the town staff and look at ways to review assumptions and factors that are used to calculate our flow. And so this is the kind of the bottom line up front as to what we ended up with, these numbers here. So this is how we got to that point. We had 3 workshops. All the participants are listed there on the right. So it was not a DPW exclusive analysis. It was contributions from all across the staff. Our first workshop focused on residential adjustments. Currently, we use 110 gallons per day as a figure to factor flow. That's based off of Title V. And there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes analysis that goes into this, but ultimately we agreed to 50 gallons per day per bedroom and 65 gallons per day per bedroom, so that those numbers are used to calculate flow. And if you go back to that chart, and we will in a second, then the amount of flow allocated towards residential, single family, multifamily is adjusted, and that's what is bringing that big number down lower. And I'll talk that again when we show the chart. The second workshop, we focused on commercial adjustments. And again, as I've said, all of our allocation to date is based off of Title V. Title V is a Massachusetts document that is really aligned towards septic systems, but typically or often communities use those numbers to develop their allocations of flow, and we've historically done that. But based on our data, we feel that we can use 70% of the Title V allocation, so that is another way we adjusted our flow. And then our third workshop dealt with risk tolerance and flow apportionment. So again, if you can remember, several months ago we talked about flow, and there's an 80% trigger mark where DEP gets interested and asks questions about where you stand in terms of your flow. So we've reviewed that, we agree, and we're going to continue to use 80% as our kind of our red line, where when we approach that red line with our 5-year average, we think we need to basically reassess our situation and make sure we're on the right track. So we just wanted to have a red line for ourselves to hold ourselves against, moving forward. And the flow apportionment is related to how much we want to allocate towards residential versus commercial. And we had some discussion about that and came up with an approach that's very similar to what was used for the current CWP, the one we're operating off of now. And so we broke out the numbers and ultimately resulted in an adjusted chart. So this chart reflects what was shown in July, which was the straight up baseline. And then the chart on the bottom of the slide reflects a new chart based on updates, based on those workshops we had. And that, if you focus on column 2 and 3 and 4, those numbers there are not exactly 2.89, as I said, but we're definitely more comfortable with those numbers being where they are and allowing us to move forward with potentially, lifting the moratorium down the road and issuing flow. I think it's unlikely we'll ever see those numbers exactly align with our limits because it's a planning factor. So there's built in essentially factors of safety, contingency, so to speak. And so, so I think those numbers we all feel comfortable with them. It's just the 4.27, a million gallons over is pretty, we weren't comfortable with that, but we're certainly comfortable with a couple 100,000 plus or minus. So that's what led us to this. So in terms of next steps, that table is what we're operating off of now. We need to basically rewrite the rules for how we allocate and issue flow, and that requires updates to our regulations and our bylaw, because our bylaw, as it reads now, is based off of Title V, and since we're going to adjust off of Title V, that's going to impact the bylaw, which means we need to go to town meeting and have that updated. So between now and March, we're updating our regulations. We'll come back to this board for approval of the updated regulations, and we'll go to town meeting for approval of the updated bylaw. Subject to that, assuming success with town meeting and regulations, then we would likely come back to the board with a recommendation to remove the moratorium, and we'll have the new allocation along with basically the rules for how that allocation is going to work, and we can move forward. And then longer term, we would continue with our CWP update, and the next step for that beyond this is to look at, as it says, additional wastewater capacity. And one of those could be expansion of the plant, but there might be other things we're going to look at, and those will be things we'll do over the next months and potentially year.
Thank you, Chris. Open up to the board for questions.
Yep. Go ahead. Just one question. When looking at the difference between single family and multifamily, is the difference in gallons per day per bedroom because in multifamily you tend to have a higher utilization?
Yes.
Okay, per bedroom. Okay.
Yep. So those numbers, that 50, that 65, that's based on that. Those numbers generally align with what we could kind of say industry standard. I mean, there's published documents by various industries that have numbers that are close to that. Their numbers are actually lower than ours. But we can see from our data, historical data, that multifamily residential uses typically more than a single family residential. And we don't want to be offer up so much that we kind of lose track, like we give away something that we can't pay. If we give too much and we can't we give it out, but we can't
take it back.
Can't pay it back, essentially. We don't want to give.
No, I'm supportive of the better safe than sorry.
Yeah, that's it. It's better safe than sorry kind of thing. So it's contingency.
I was just curious if the difference there.
Yep.
Chris, just so I understand this, so because I actually don't, that permitted's over. I look at the actual numbers, didn't really talk about that. Looks like we're slightly under, but you said you're comfortable, so I guess I'm good with that. Can we talk about we get say everything works, we get the rules and regulations, we accept those, the bylaw goes to town meeting, gets passed, we lift the moratorium. How do you look now in terms of moratorium's gone, someone comes out and permit? I mean, you're comfortable at the numbers you're at, but are you comfortable permitting above that now, or I guess I'm a little bit unsure of what.
Maybe it's helpful to look at the far right, so the green on the screen.
The actual.
So those are actual projections. I mean, they're estimates, but it's based on real data that we have. And if you look at column 7 on the bottom table, it says 2.53. That projection is after we've built out, we've essentially built the town to, there's no more space to build kind of thing. And so, that's based on our own assumption. If the town decided everything is life science and high water usage, that's a totally different story. But if we just stay consistent with like how we've historically, built houses and built businesses, then that 2.5 million is under 2.89. And so we're not solely relying on that number, but that's a pretty good indicator to us that we are headed in the right direction and we have capacity to issue, and we're not going to exceed the 2.89.
Perfect, thank you. I didn't see, and I probably should have read better in section 6 where it said projected. I was just reading actual and said, okay, well, we're actually using 2.53, so it doesn't really give us much room under 2.8 now, but now understanding that that's 2.53 projected on a full build out.
Yeah, and so just to reiterate that column 5 is 2.07. That's what we're saying our average has been. So that's what we're using now.
Yep.
That's a 5-year average. And then column 6 is what we're projecting for the future. So
for the build out.
That 0.48 is 480,000 gallons. So that 480 is for many, many years. That's not just next year type of thing. That's years into the future.
Perfect.
Unless there's some very unique circumstance where we issue flow to a property that's using something that's abnormally a large amount.
Yep. Perfect. Totally makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Jim.
So ourselves, Shrewsbury, and Hopkinton go into the wastewater treatment plant. We're around, I guess, just under 80%. I think Shrewsbury is just above 80%. Like, everybody's using a good amount of that flow. I see that we are going to remain under our portion of that flow based on this calculation. What happens if one of those other towns cannot stay underneath their permitted amount? Like, technically there's excess because we are not using our full portion.
So each town, Joe, I'll let you chime in if I say something incorrect here, but each town has their own permit. And so our obligation is what we're permitted for, which is the 2.89. And so if someone else, some other town were to exceed their permit, then that's a issue really for that town and the DEP and probably potentially the wastewater treatment plant. But I can't see a circumstance where they would, someone would say we have to give up something to cover someone else. But accurate, yeah. If that's what you were getting at,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they could just be allowed to go over if there was general capacity available, even if it wasn't allocated to them. But it would be I would imagine, sounds like a sort of a gross violation of the agreement and would need to be somehow remedied in.
Yes.
Okay.
If they exceed what we showed on that original, if any of us exceed these numbers, then individually each town up there has a responsibility to figure out how to solve that problem. And there's discussion with DEP and all that sort of thing. So we're not going to pay for, we're not going to figure out how to fix Shrewsbury if they have an overage.
Okay. Thank you.
Or we don't have any responsibility to, I guess is my.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Quick question. The flow, in the third workshop, you started discussing reallocation of the flow across the different categories. Will that be reflected in the bylaw or the regulations, or is that a separate process that DEP is involved with? And
the actual numbers, is that what you're asking?
right, like, currently it's my understanding if we were to lift the moratorium today, there's no allocation for multifamily. That division of the 2.89 is fully
Yeah, so,
fully committed.
um,
So any sort of shift in percentages.
so we're, the slides we just showed were summaries.
Right.
This, you may not have this in your packet, but that slide is the breakout of all those numbers to show what would go to single-family, multifamily, commercial, and everything else.
Okay.
And those numbers were derived based on our understanding of the potential for development and the town's interests. So to give you a perspective, do you happen to have that sheet with the examples? So these numbers up here, if you look at column 3A, so projected additional permitted flow. So single family, it says 0.016, that's 16,000 gallons, right? So if you did 16,000 divided by 50, I think it's around 300 or so. So that's how many bedrooms we could create, for the future. So 300 bedrooms is a lot, and so there's not really. So my point is those numbers, they're hard to interpret in just looking at 0.016, but equating them to something. We're talking hundreds of bedrooms for single family, multifamily, dozens of 100,000 square foot buildings. So there's a lot of flow there to do things that are potentially out there.
And the 0.072 comes out to a little over 1,100 multifamily units. If I did the math right.
Bedrooms, yes.
Yeah, bedrooms.
1,430 72,000 divided by 65.
Okay. Yep. So 1,107.5 bedrooms.
So, I mean, I don't know how many we're going to build, but
right.
that's enough to get us going for a little while.
Right.
And our thought is, kind of big picture, is that this is not the end state, for the next 30 years, but it's enough to keep us going while we look at the alternatives for expanded capacity. And by the time we would get close to exhausting this, I think the town would probably be at a point where we would know what our option's going to be for expanded capacity, or we might already be on the way to creating it if that's ultimately decided.
Excellent. Thank you.
So Chris, I guess my question is around, if I'm reading the data correctly, the 2.53 to the 2.89, even with those calculations, there's still excess above and beyond in regards to what has been allotted to the town under its permit. So even if we do hit those numbers that you just ran through, there's roughly 0.36 remaining between the 2.89 and the 2.53 as far as space on our permit. Is that a correct understanding?
It is, yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that means we're going to actually have that 0.36.
Yeah.
But yes, your interpretation is correct. It's just we want to build our buffer, and
sure.
That's why we want the 80%, which is about 2.31, so that we just check ourselves when we start getting closer and closer, so we're not scrambling to, respond.
So do you feel that the mechanisms are in place to manage this and monitor it between the DPW and the wastewater treatment plant, to keep an eye on this, and as far as the planning board, as far as, hey, how many houses are going to come online with project XYZ, or a large commercial and spaces you just mentioned, if it was a biopharmaceutical or something, are the mechanisms in place for you to keep an eye on this and on an annual, I'm imagining an annual basis, revisit these numbers?
Yeah. Yes. And so what we will do from the Public Works perspective is track the numbers. Others, such as the planning board, will decide how they want to consume that flow, and we'll just tell you what that means in terms of, the consumption and how that impacts, the amount of flow available.
Right. And over time, you can see how we track against the estimated, I'll call it for lack of a better word, flows in the green sections. So.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know you.
No, that's okay. All great questions. Chris, first of all, if you wouldn't mind just updating the slide deck to include this chart, that one we have doesn't have that, so that would be great, as long as we can get that through Christy. And then you provided some clarification around kind of the interpretation of the, like, what does column 5 really mean in column 6, even if just as a footer, because it's great that we can go back to watch this again through Westborough TV, but if it could just be like a brief explanation of what those mean, you just verbalized it, that would be helpful.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And the report that we presented, this is all based off of a report.
Yep.
And that report, which was presented, is posted. And I mean, we can certainly add that to slides,
Yep.
but all of that explanation,
Okay.
like with the table in the report, is explained.
Okay.
So we don't have this new table in the report because we just got
Yep.
to this point. But
Sure.
but just so you know, that explanation is out there.
Yeah.
And available.
And I appreciate that, and someone who's really studious will go back to like the report, but someone who says, oh, I heard that the select board was talking about it, might look at this presentation. Yep. So if that's not too much trouble, that would be helpful. My next question is, when you talk about residential, we always have this conversation with our assessor, or not finance director, but our assessor, about what does residential mean, and just to be clear, multifamily is +1, right?
Yep.
Right, so it could be Arrive, it could be Park, when we think of multifamily, it could be a 3-family house, or it could be upwards. Okay,
correct.
Just to be clear, thank you. And has this, I see the participants in, that you mentioned in the workshop. I don't see participants with the wastewater treatment plan board.
They're aware of what we're doing,
Okay.
but there's not really any, I mean, they're certainly not excluded, but there's really no
They're sort of like the vendor,
interest.
if
I mean,
you will,
they just want to know that we're going to comply.
Okay.
And what our results ultimately will be. But at the end of the day, I don't know they have much interest as a board. I mean, I know they have individual interests or whatever, but there's not really any role for them in determining our allocation.
It's our issue to deal with, I understand that. But just in the interest of transparency and open communications, have they received the report that we did? Like formally received it?
Yeah.
Yes, we did?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have quarterly meetings with them. They have access to really whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this stuff is online, but just in the interest, I mean, it's very relevant to that board and this department but thank you for that clarification, okay. And it's kind of a broader question, I'm not sure if you can answer it. I do see our community development director here in the audience as well. Do we have a sense of what the impact has been on development so far since the moratorium? Anecdotal to residential or commercial?
I don't. If I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I don't have any. We certainly get phone calls all the time, people exploring opportunities. I don't know if the moratorium impacts their decisions or not.
Well, being that I guess I'm asking, being that there is one, it was a big deal when we made it. There was lots of concern, that was, at least I heard, that was voiced about the impact particularly on commercial development. And so we're now, 6 months into this? So I'm just curious to know if we feel like there's been,
From where I sit, no, because I mean, no one's calling us and saying, begging for something, or hey, I got to do this kind of thing. I mean, there's always conversations, but there's not.
Sure.
there's not an outcry, but I don't see everything that, you know,
Yeah.
others see, so I don't know.
Well, and I noticed that, and I don't want to get ahead of Christie's presentation, but I noticed in the Economic Development Committee update that there were 6 weeks of one-stop meetings, those are regular meetings that included new business engagement. So there's clearly interest. I'm just trying to understand, are we bumping up against a problem yet? Or is it, things feel okay, you know, from a, we're not creating, we're not doing the Heisman, right? Like, go away.
I think
we
it's
don't
fair
have
to say
capacity.
there are certainly developers out there, specifically on the multifamily side, but they were kind of in pause even prior to the moratorium.
Yeah.
So I don't think the moratorium really impacted their ability to develop anything. I think, honestly, again, this is just my opinion based on limited conversations. I think they're excited to see this because they expect some sort of resolution versus kind of just a nebulous, unclear situation, which was before.
Yeah,
So-
no, I think we're all excited to see it, and I appreciate the work that's been done. I would, Fred is here through you, Patrick,
Sure.
could we hear from him just on that?
Yeah, Fred, if you
question?
can.
Just, he may have a different lens than our DPW director. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Fred Leonardo, Community Development Director. So anecdotally, yes, I think the moratorium is stalled some projects, but can I tell you that we actually denied a permit? No. No, nobody's imminently putting a project together, but I have talked to developers that want to bring things forward, some on the multifamily, some on the commercial side. So they're, I don't know, maybe it's strong to say they're in limbo, but they may not be able to bring those projects forward until we have a definitive answer on this. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but.
It does, thank you. And so because we have a moratorium, any new projects, just so we're all clear, any new projects that are coming forward, you're having the discussions, you're explaining kind of what the process is to work with Westborough, but that becomes a pretty early game stopper for any business, right? Or any developer.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, based on the some conversations that I've had, and obviously Fred talks, more through his office, but I think because these projects take so much time, and the moratorium currently is to be in place through May, I think that there has been progress on things in hopes of the moratorium being lifted in that 1 year period. So I feel like conversations are continuing. People are still kind of doing the work. We actually will see something in January, which is like an expansion of a current business. People are continuing to do these things because they expect that it will be lifted. That being said, we've always been honest about the fact that, we were doing this work and that, we aren't clear of the deadline, but currently it's in place for 1 year. So I feel like people are able to move forward, understanding these projects take a long time anyway.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I think we're all, I was supportive of the moratorium, and I'm still supportive of it to give time to do this work. I just think it's important to have that check and ask the question, and also to understand that Westborough continues to be, thankfully, a highly desirable place to develop, whether commercial or residential. But there are those, just the nature of business, there are those that are going to say, I don't have time, I got to go find a better place or a new place, where this is not a hurdle I have to overcome. So I just think we have to understand that. And I would expect of our departments to share that information as we go forward, we get closer to that moratorium discussion and the bylaw and the regulations to understand the impact. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I think it'd be important that we try to resolve it the best we can, as soon as we can, but
sure.
I wouldn't say that we've turned away anybody to this point. I can't name a project that has said, we can't wait, we won't go forward. So if that's another way of clarifying that question.
I also just wanted to add that, having had these conversations with other communities, Westborough's approach to do the moratorium and do the work and then be prepared for the people who want to come here, I think is as much as no one wanted to put the moratorium in place, I think it allowed this work to happen so that as a town we're more comfortable with going forward. But I think it's important to stress that this is an issue that is facing towns across the Commonwealth.
And just anecdotally, the trust has been working with a multifamily development, and their approach was, the way the property's being developed, they have sewer, but any incremental demand would be septic. At this point, their plan was to plan for the septic and look at their construction schedule with the understanding that if the moratorium lifts, they have time to come in and apply for a permit and get a permit before they would actually have to build the septic, and they could just literally pull that out of the project.
Adjust the
And
plan,
so-
plan and the site accordingly.
Yeah, and so they plan for the worst case, the project's still viable. If they're, if and when the moratorium lifts, they have the time, they get the permit, they've just effectively saved money on the construction costs.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I would also add that the manager and other department heads have been instrumental in trying to push the state administration to be aware of this project. It's not like we're,
Thank you.
not going out and preaching to people that we need help, not only Westborough, but the whole state.
Yeah,
But
thank you for that point.
sure, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Fred. Did you have any-
No, that's it, thank you.
Chris, I guess just one follow-up question. Can you just briefly describe like the work that needs to be done between now and when we come at the end of April and have a discussion about this again, as far as what work needs to be done in regards to the moratorium and making that decision? If you just maybe.
The simple thing is we need the bylaw updated because it doesn't reflect what we're adjusting to, and so we need to go to town meeting and ideally get an updated bylaw approved.
Yep.
And we'll do all the meetings that occur up until town meeting, and then once that's done, assuming that's successful, I think we would be back to you with a recommendation for.
So if it's passed, that's really prior to the intended expiration of April 30th. If it's passed at town meeting in March, soon thereafter at a board meeting, you'd probably come and ask us to, or recommend that to us that we lift the moratorium.
There's no reason to wait until April 30th, end of April. And that's kind of where I was headed. Like, is there any other work that we're not aware of that gets us there? Because I think the sooner we can remove the moratorium, I think that's the desirable place we'd all like to land, earlier than later. So
agreed. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update.
All right, 6:54, so we can't go to item 4 yet. Let's go to request of appointment. Request of appointment of Elsam Alban, and I apologize for the pronunciation, to the Economic Development Committee.
Oh, yes. He's here right now. We had 2 candidates. He came before the committee and presented to us. He has an excellent business background in town, also some international business experience. The other candidate had more of an accounting background and had also applied for the Advisory Finance Committee and also was unable to attend the meeting, so sent that application forward to the AFC. I don't know that they currently have any open positions, but I know they regularly have open positions, so it was much appreciated. But yes, unanimously supported by the Economic Development Committee.
Terrific. Thank you, Sean. Any questions, discussion?
Do we need a motion?
We need a motion.
I could make that. What page are we on? One second, please.
We are on page.
You want the expiration?
Yes. Further here, move to appoint Elsam Elaban to the Economic Development Committee for a term to expire. This is a 3-year term. I think it expires 27.
27.
It's not on the agenda form. Oh, that's okay.
It's a new term?
Yeah, so replacing some.
So So that's whatever his term was.
So it would be June 30th, 2025.
June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Hallivan, for being willing to help us with this position. The EDC is an incredibly important committee in the town. Brings a lot of additional revenue to the town as we build those relationships with the business community, so thank you.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you in January.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Do the minutes. Do you want to do the minutes?
Sure, we'll do the minutes. Item 14, request to approve the meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2024 and December 3rd, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. Item
Do you want to do 11?
11. Sure. Move to item 11, approval of Public Works Director FY 26 to FY 28 employment contract. Kim, did you have a?
It's right. It's just got passed out. So
All right, very good.
Okay. I didn't know if anyone else was doing an intro. So,
Oh, you're going to do it? Okay. Go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Public Works Director, Chris Pant's current employment contract with the town expires at the conclusion of the current fiscal year. That would be June 30th, 2025. On behalf of the board, I'm pleased to announce that the board and the DPW Director have successfully concluded negotiations for a 3-year successor agreement. And the following are several of the key provisions of the contract. Alan, you want to read those?
Sure.
Thanks.
The contract term is 3 years, effective July 1st, 2025, and continuing through June 30th, 2028. The base salary for year 1, effective July 1st, 2025, shall be $170,264. In years 2 and 3, the DPW Director shall receive the same percentage salary increase that is received by non-union employees of the town. Additional compensation shall also be paid to the DPW Director in the form of contributions to a deferred compensation account in the amount of $4,000 in fiscal year 2026, $5,000 in fiscal year 2027, and $6,000 in fiscal year 2028. The contract provides for 5 weeks of vacation annually with sick leave, personal leave, and holidays granted in accordance with the town's personnel policies. Once the contract is fully executed, it will be posted to the Labor and Employment Agreements page of the town's Human Resources website.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Alan. There's no action to take here, correct?
Already taken.
7
Yeah.
o'clock.
Okay.
Just want to thank the board, thank Director Pant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And excited that we were able to finalize the contracts.
Thank you, too, for being our negotiating committee.
You bet.
Yes.
Happy to help.
Oh, hearing the chime of 7 o'clock. We'll commence on item number 4, public hearing, request of Autopex LLC, DBA Autopex for a New England Class 2 dealer's license at 240 Turnpike Road.
I'll move to open the public hearing for Autopex LLC doing business as Autopex for a new Class 2 dealer's license at 240 Turnpike Road.
Yeah, I got a second. Okay, second. And we get
Just in favor.
just regular vote, right? Yeah. All those in favor? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you
If
so
could
much.
Just introduce yourself.
My name is Honor, O-N-U-R, Honor, and I'm planning to open a car dealership on the Turnpike Road. It's gonna be my second business, and I appreciate you all. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is some free advertising here tonight, so you can
Right.
tell us all about your business if you'd like. So at this point, I'll just
Yeah, could we hear, could
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit more about your business?
So what I do, as I said, this is gonna be my second car dealership. I have another one in Maynard, Mass. I have about like 85 cars in there. So what we do, we buy second-hand quality vehicles and buy and sell them. I absolutely don't do any mechanical work. So we just get some services from outsiders. So what we do, as I said, we buy some quality vehicles for people.
Terrific. Location, any questions from the board?
So for folks at home, the location is, I think it was the prior Enterprise, right? Rent a
That's
car,
correct,
and
that's
it's
correct.
right in front of, before you take the right to go to Ocean State Job Lot, correct?
That's correct, sir, yes.
In front of
So
West
folks know where to find you.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for coming to Westborough. Appreciate your interest and congratulations on the opening of your second business. When do you, assuming everything goes forward, when do you assume the opening?
Thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate you all, okay?
Yeah. When do you assume the opening of your business?
Probably it's gonna be mid-January.
Great.
Great.
Terrific.
Congrats.
Well,
New year.
welcome.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the community.
Happy holidays, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, 2 seconds.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a vote here?
No, it's a public hearing, so we have to see if there's any public.
Yeah, that's right. If there's anybody for public comment? Seeing none, I'll, for a motion and further discussion.
Wanna go?
I'll go.
Okay.
I move to approve the Class 2 dealer's license for Autopex LLC, DBA Autopex at 240 Turnpike Road, and to approve the parking plan as submitted and approved by the Select Board with the following conditions and restrictions. All vehicles must be located in designated parking spots as shown on the approved parking plan as of December 17th, 2024. No more than 48 vehicles for sale, parking for 2 customer vehicles, 1 handicap parking space, and parking for 2 employees. Furthermore, the business is strictly prohibited from completing any vehicle repairs on site, and garage space may only be used to wash vehicles for sale.
You
Second.
know you were leading. We both missed it.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Actually, I was reminded of it as you were
I'll
reading.
second that. Sorry, I don't know.
Go ahead, second
Okay,
that.
second.
Sean did.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I heard somebody saying, okay. My question is, on the documentation, Christy or Sheila, there is a lot configuration section, and the motion that just spoke of 2 employee parking spaces, but on the actual application, it talks about 1 employee parking space. So I just wanted to make sure that either the motion was corrected or
Oh, in the form you mean.
it's on the form itself, lot configuration.
Got it.
And it says a display of 50 vehicles, not 48 vehicles, as in the motion. I'm sorry, what?
You go with the parking plan that was approved by the building department,
Okay.
which was 48 and 2.
Can
48
I
and
comment
2.
it? So the parking space for the cars, for the display, there was 50. So what we did, we took off 2 display and then just give it as an employee parking.
Okay.
That's what we
All right.
changed.
That makes sense. I just wanted to make sure we had them, we were all
Absolutely.
synchronized here. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. And
Thank
welcome
you.
again to the town. We look
Welcome and
forward to-
best of luck.
Yes.
Thank you all.
I will move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second, motion and a second. All those in favor? All right. Moving on to item 5, request to install menorah on the Rotary, Rabbi Fogelman and Chabad of Central Massachusetts. Is Rabbi here? No.
I think Rabbi Fullerman is coming, so I don't know if you want to
Do you wanna
skip
move
down to
on?
number 10.
Okay, we'll go to number 10. Number 10. Oh, yeah, there we go. Assistant Town Accountant Procurement Officer job description.
So as the board is aware, we've had some transition in the finance department over the past couple of years, and it's provided the opportunity with retirements and some other changes to implement a number of the recommendations that were in the 2020 non-union staffing study. So as we've worked through that, and as we've, knock on wood, have all of the pieces in place at this point, we currently have a vacancy in the grants administrator procurement position, which was originally established back in 2021. Now that we have a finance director and a town accountant, 2 separate positions, we've identified the opportunity to tweak the position as it stands today and to combine it with some of the functions of an assistant town accountant. So what you have in front of you is a new job description for a position titled Assistant Town Accountant / Procurement Officer. It retains the primary function for supporting staff with procurement, supports the grants administration function, but also provides for greater flexibility and really some cross-training and backup for some of the functions of the assistant town accountant role. I think, as you know, what we found is needing to build in some redundancy and support. So if we do have transition, we have that support. That's what we're looking to do here. I think we've also identified with a dedicated town accountant position supervising the procurement and grants aspect. There's less of a need for that position to be as independent as it was anticipated to be in the higher job description that exists today. So I think you have a copy of the job description. If there are any questions, happy. Oh, and then the job classification. So as it currently exists, it's classified on the department head wage scale as a salaried position. Our proposal brings it to the hourly non-union wage schedule, the H5 classification. This is one grade higher than the current assistant town accountant. In evaluating the functions of the job and the requirements around procurement, that really elevates it, in our opinion, a step above the other position that exists, the assistant town accountant.
Thank you, Kim.
So in essence, it eliminates an H6 position, takes an H4,
Yes.
elevates it to H5.
Sorry, I should
and the
be
role
clear.
is-
Yes,
Yeah.
we are not adding a position. We are looking to retitle and refine the existing position.
In a lower classification.
Low classification.
So a lower salary schedule.
Yeah, I think it's the difference in the top step between the two is about $13,000.
This makes a lot of sense to me, and it also provides the employee some additional skill sets that they can grow upon, and to your point, bolsters the department. So this is, I think, a creative way of doing that. So thank you. My question here is, I just want to make sure we're competitive when we see that we're going from an S6 down to an H5. I just want to make sure we're not going to have any troubles filling the position in regards to that change there.
I think it's classified competitively.
Okay.
I don't want to say we won't have trouble filling it, but I think.
I mean, as with all of our finance positions.
Yes, they're challenging to fill, but I do believe this is competitive. Absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions?
I think it makes sense. This is.
Yeah, what portion of the job will be grants writing? I mean, I know it's just.
It's not really intended to be grants writing. It's grants administration.
Administration. Thank you.
Helping. It doesn't mean that it doesn't help with preparation and submission of grants, but it's really more focused on the financial, once the grants are received, the tracking, the reporting, making sure the expenditures and everything is in line with the requirements and the funding, the grantors.
Okay, so flow is going to be dependent upon the work of other departments, committees or otherwise, working with those departments to apply for grants.
And, yeah, and that's how the previous position functioned as well.
Yeah, so this is not new. Again, we're just combining. Okay, yep, got it.
How about just investigating, doing the work of finding and identifying early on? Is that just left? Is that
departments?
Primarily the departments, or would this individual also be helping identify opportunities?
I think what we had found was our previous employee was able to forward grant opportunities along as they became evident to her, but really departments pursue grants based on the priorities of the department and the projects that they're moving forward with.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I would just say thank you guys for evaluating each, opportunity as it comes forward and sort of, considering them each individually as they fit into the town, ever evolving. So thank you very much.
Just one other, so once we approve this, presumably we do, how long is it posted for?
Well, it has to be posted for a minimum of, it'll likely 3 weeks. Yeah, it's a minimum of 2 weeks, but we typically post. And so I anticipate we'll post it quickly, and then we'd look to
holidays
after the
Probably the
holidays.
next 2 weeks would be the best.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so
yeah.
we might expect a little extended period of time.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Okay.
I move to approve the Assistant Town Accountant Procurement Officer job description as presented and to add the position to the classification plan.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, Kim. Okay. I don't see Rebel. Okay.
Can we do number 6?
Well, number 6, extension of the liquor service on New Year's Eve for the restaurants and bars.
Yep, so this was something that we previously did annually pre-COVID. It's something that folks have requested that come back in terms of liquor service pouring be allowed to happen through until 2 a.m. On New Year's Day, New Year's morning. And so we're bringing this to the board. The board previously did the approvals. So you actually have 2 motions. One is to extend the service through 2 a.m. on January 1st, 2025. The other is alternatively would be to delegate this to the town manager, as we previously discussed many years ago. Maybe Ian remembers that. And so whether or not you want this to come to you annually, or if you want me to handle it as I do with some other things that were delegated to my position. But you also have a list in your packet of all of the restaurants and bars that would be allowed to serve until 2 a.m. You'll note in your packet that we did run this by the police chief, who is in agreement. I guess the only amendment to the motions that you have before you is if you were to just move forward approving it on your own, you would want to remove both Tavolino and Owen O'Leary's, just based on the agenda item you have at 8:30 related to their license. And then you could consider it at that time.
Sorry. My personal take, and this was before, but I think, as with other things, I would be comfortable with moving this, delegating this to the town manager versus having this come in front of us every year. I think, as I've been on the board, we've approved it every year. It's requests that we have from businesses. Again, we have a long list here. Many of them will not use it, even though we extend it. They don't have to, but it just allows that extension for that one night. I think the big piece is the chief of police approval, which is in there. If we delegate it to the town manager. So my thoughts on this one would be to follow that route as opposed to in front of us, but that's just my thinking.
Just so I'm comfortable with that, I just have a question, I guess, for the board generally. Do we agree that the motion that's listed second is specific to requiring approval of the chief of police annually? Like, that would be inherent as part of the town manager's approval process?
Yeah, that's how I interpreted it.
That's
Yeah.
how it's in there.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's not a blanket that would have to be every year.
Okay, great.
Just like we would ask for it every year too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, and I think that if for some reason on some New Year's Eve there was an issue, then we would want to reconsider this ourselves, and we would have a year in order to do so.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would, ask that just in the town manager's report, when you do it each December, that you just inform us in the community that you've approved. And yeah, exactly right. If we encounter issues, we'll come back before the board, as it would. Issues come back before us anyways, because it's related to a liquor license.
Right.
I wasn't of a strong opinion really either way, so I would support the motion as being suggested.
Do we have to name all of them as part of the motion?
No, in this case, because we're delegating it, we don't have to.
Okay.
So move that the board delegate determining New Year's Eve liquor sales to the town manager, with the chief of police review and approval prior to the town manager approving liquor sales until 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve.
Second.
I just have a question. Why is it says January 1 after New Year's Eve?
I guess
Because
technically
it's still 2 a.m. on January
1st.
Oh, okay, gotcha, yeah. All right, got a motion and a
You'll be in
second?
bed by then.
Yeah, that's yeah,
It's actually
sure.
New Year's Eve, but it goes into New Year's Day.
I got you. Yeah,
So,
yeah. You're right. Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None, seeing none. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you for doing that, Christy. So that was the.
Yeah, I think if you want to move ahead with the menorah
Okay.
at this point.
Okay, I can read this. Chabad of Central Massachusetts is requested to install a menorah on the town's rotary from Sunday, December 22nd, 2024 to Sunday, January 5th, 2025, and to also have a gathering on Monday, December 30th, 2024 at 6 p.m. The organization was granted this request last year by the board, and there were no issues with the installation. As a reminder, the board's policy does not have any prohibitions against organizations not in Westborough to have installations on the rotary. So do we have a end time from them?
We do not.
So can we come up with an end time in our
You
motion?
could, or you could just leave the end time off and just have the start time.
Okay.
Just 'cause
I'll
we
leave
don't
that for
know.
you all
I
to
mean,
discuss.
I think last year it was an hour, hour and a half at most.
Yeah. I was gonna say 6 to 8, I think that would cover it.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
mean,
a
I'd
long.
even be fine saying 6 to 9, just.
Yeah.
6 to 9.
But, so I would move to permit Central Massabad to place a menorah on the rotary from Sunday, December 22nd, 2024 to Sunday, January 5th, 2025, and to also have a gathering on Monday, December 30th, 2024 at 6 p.m. to conclude no later than 9 p.m.
Second.
Second.
Second and move. Any further discussion?
Just the one thing I know that and was in here with our sign policy, so, Robert's not here, that just basically that you can't advertise on the display, whatever, we'll just have to monitor that, but, again, we haven't had an issue with it
Nope.
recently, so,
Okay.
fine.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Okay.
My report's pretty long if you want me to.
Well, I was just looking at this. Let's see here, 7:30. We got 11 minutes.
7:30, we got 8,
Westborough TV's not here, right?
You only have 10 minutes.
Yep, go to, yep, your report.
Do you want to do town manager's report?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So first on the report, we did not have our town manager report last meeting, which is why this one's really lengthy. But the upcoming board meetings on January 8th at 6 p.m. Here in Memorial Hall, we'll have an off-cycle meeting of the select board where you'll receive updated cost estimates of the community center. So you'll have a presentation from the design team and the owner's project manager. On January 14th, you have your regularly scheduled select board meeting. On January 16th, there will be a joint meeting of the select board and planning board to discuss the Bewalt Trail. On January 28th, there will be a regular meeting of the select board. And on January 30th is the budget summit, which is a joint meeting of the select board and the advisory finance committee.
So this kicks in our overtime pay?
Yes, exactly.
Additionally, just mentioning that folks might see that we're starting to hold executive sessions first thing in the morning, and that's really just to get through some of that work as opposed to after our regular meetings.
As opposed to 10, 11 o'clock
Yeah.
at night, yes.
Well, and I think it's especially where times we have legal counsel on,
Yep.
using them during regular business hours versus 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah. We also, the holiday schedule for town offices, we are closed starting at 12 p.m. on Tuesday, December 24th, and we'll be reopening on Thursday, December 26th at 8 a.m. We're also closing on Tuesday, December 31st at 3 p.m. and reopening Thursday, January 2nd at 8 a.m. The winter parking ban, the select board voted to change the start date of that from November 1st to December 1st. As we had mentioned at that meeting, we're required to publish that in the newspaper, which we've done. And so that was in the Community Advocate on December 6th. So the website's been updated, and that'll be how it moves forward for next year. On Friday, December 20th, my recommended budget, the town manager's recommended budget for fiscal 2026 will be available on the town's website by the end
It's
of
like
the
a
day.
Christmas gift, just waiting for us.
And is end of day noon time or 5 p.m.?
Well, I shouldn't say this, but I actually was hoping to get it to you Thursday, but
Oh, shh.
we'll see. I don't know.
Chrissy, just
That's a jinx.
Big red bow on it.
We get a binder.
So yes,
Or
so the
some
select board
question.
will get the binders, and as will the finance committee, and residents can see it, can look at it on the website, and if anyone has questions about, or would like it, portions of it printed, there's a lot of documents, we can help with that. It's good reading.
Award winning.
Yes, award winning, yeah. The Department of Public Works is reporting that the Oak Street Water Treatment Plant PFAS Improvement Project was awarded loan forgiveness through the Clean Water Trust in the amount of $1.1 plus $million, which is 13% of the $8.2 million project cost. And then as a reminder, this program also provides us with a 0% interest on the loan. All new staff completed the UMass Transportation Center Bay State Roads Snow and Ice Operations course. The course teaches efficient snow and ice removal methods, pre-treatment best practices, and salt spreader equipment calibration. Related to project updates, chlorine booster stations were recently installed at Bay Mountain and Ruggles water tanks, and the startup procedures are ongoing. The Bowman Lane Culvert Project kickoff meetings was scheduled this week, and submittal, review, and material ordering are the near-term activities to occur. The Oak Street Treatment Plant project is also ongoing. The building foundation for the addition is complete. Under the Economic Development Report, as was, I think, mentioned earlier, there's a report on businesses that we've interacted with that we've worked to either retain or attract to Westborough. And so there's a whole listing between July and December of this year. We are also, related to their work promoting development, they're planning a meeting with real estate representatives, developers, property owners to update them on the Highway Business District bylaw change, the downtown planning, and the TIF changes. We've hosted 6 weeks of one-stop meetings that included new business engagement, and we're currently working with 11 businesses on various town services. Outreach to business has happened through re-engagement of the ambassador program, which is planned to begin next month. Outreach for involvement of community events since October. There's a listing here. And then the EDC newsletter is planned to be quarterly, and the first edition was sent out in November of 2024. We are also continuing to work on the branding and wayfinding project. So that work began in November, and we're working to extend the overall project earmark funding to June 30 of 2026. We received an earmark from the state for that work. In the fire department, the Westborough Fire Department has recently taken part in mandatory Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services cost reporting process, which took several months to complete and was accomplished by Deputy Chief Steve Doucette. This cost reporting included providing data to our facility characteristics, fleet utilization data, cost and charges, settlement data, and financial statement data. And it allows the Medicare services to monitor healthcare expenses, determine what agencies require or owe reimbursement, evaluate regulation changes, and assure that reimbursement is accurate and current. The Emergency Management Division of the Fire Department hosted an exercise with MEMA and 5 other communities across the Commonwealth in Westborough's Emergency Operations Center on December 11th. Participation extended to many departments in Westborough, including the town manager, DPW, fire, police, public health, and finance. It focused on establishing the Emergency Operations Center, emergency response, communication to and from the public, and finance, as well as hand-in-hand help with our future planning. And then the fire department continues to build out record management system, including the use of Community Connect for residential and commercial use. They're asking that property owners take advantage of this free opportunity to register and provide basic notification information to first responders should an emergency occur. Information holds the same level of security as bank encryption, and the sign-up can be found by searching Community Connect Westborough. In the health department, the immunization refrigerator inspection has been completed. So they're happy to report that they've passed. With the Vaccines for Children's program, ensuring that we remain in compliance with required standards. The Board of Health is currently working on draft regulations for body works establishments in the town in collaboration with the police department. In the library hosted a training for staff on storytelling and advocacy. They also launched a new collection of Tony boxes and over 100 characters in our kids' library of things. So Tony boxes provide a screen-free listening experience, encourage imaginative play, are simple for young children to operate independently, and can be used for educational purposes. And their library assistant, Kula Rashid, graduated with her master's in library and information science over the weekend. So congratulations to Kula. In the police department, they'll be doing increased traffic patrols during the holiday season, focused on impaired driving. This is possible through grant funding from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, as well as Massachusetts Office of Grants and Research with the Municipal Road Safety Grant. Sustainability and community development, they've secured $202,000+ through the Green Communities grant and the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant from DOER. This funding will support weatherization of Town Hall, EMS retro commissioning of the Forbes Municipal Building, and development of a town-wide EV charging station deployment roadmap. They're working closely with the school facilities team on LED lighting upgrading at Hastings. They're also working with the facilities manager and vendors regarding the HVAC project at the community center. So those are the rooftop units that we've talked about. The Climate Leaders Program, they're prioritizing the decarbonization roadmap. They're partnering with the finance department on solar credit allocations, working with DPU and Peregrine on updates for the upcoming Westborough Power Choice contract. They're also maintaining active outreach through social media, newsletters, events, and campaigns, such as the Community First Partnership. In the town clerk's office, this is the last office that we're gonna report on. Nomination papers for the March 11th, 2025 town election are available in the town clerk's office. The last day to pull papers is January 17th. A list of the offices that will be on the ballot is available on the town's website. The 2025 annual town census street listing will be in the mail at the beginning of January. And annual dog licensing starts on January 2nd.
I feel like we just finished both the census and dog licensing, and now it's starting again. It's crazy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy. Got three things left here. Any suggestion?
1 minute.
We could do issues and correspondence.
I think it's 7:20 now.
We have 1 minute.
Yep. And then we wait. Just wait the 1 minute.
That's all right. I think we just.
Actually, I need to. I'm gonna call Brian.
Okay. Council on.
I'll just put you on speaker and people do it, so I'll put you on mute. I know I can hear myself in the background. Okay. So Brian Riley from KP Law, who has worked with you before, is on the phone in case you have any questions related to the mobile hearing. He's reviewed all the documents that are in your folder.
Okay, so we can open a public hearing now at 7:30.
Yeah, is this a public hearing?
It's a hearing. It's not a public hearing. It's just a hearing related to the licensing.
Okay. So you don't have to. I don't think we have to. So we don't have to officially open it yet.
We don't have to open anything. Okay, all right.
But it is 7:30.
Well, no, you do have to open the hearing. Sorry, it's not a public hearing.
Okay.
You don't have to take comment from the public. You do have to open.
Okay, so I would open the hearing, being 7:30 p.m., I'd open the hearing for Mobile Station, the Class 2 license renewal and approval of parking plan, and this is from Westborough Mobile at 24 East Main Street.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Hearing is open.
Great.
Sure. Come over for you. Come on up. Just introduce yourself. Welcome.
Jack Azar from Westborough Mobile.
Welcome, Mr. Azar. To remind the community, Westborough Mobile is at 24 East Main Street and is before the Select Board this evening for the approval of an updated parking plan. The business has worked with the town manager's office in submitting the updated plan that encompasses the request made by the police and building departments. The fire department was, the request made by the police, building departments, the fire department also was approved the plans as presented. I'm sorry, bungled that a little bit. And the building commissioner has also submitted a letter confirming the inspections of the business handicap parking met the requirements of the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. The business's Class 2 license is also up for renewal. The business has submitted all of the requirements for renewal. The motion below follows the terms of the previous license, plus includes the updated parking plan. So that said, I'll just open it up to the board for any discussion.
Mr. Azar, for anything?
Mr. Azar, if you'd like to make any comments.
No, I just want to let you know that I'm taking everything seriously. I did everything you guys asked me for, and I'm going to continue doing that. You know, I just want to be in compliance, just for me and for everybody.
Thank you.
And I would just say I appreciate that. Thank you so much for working with the various departments.
Thank you.
And it's nice to have a nice clean update come through and hopefully an easy motion.
I've a couple comments. I appreciate the parking plan. If I recall, it wasn't in the packet, but the prior permit, or the one 2 permits ago, had a limit on the total number of vehicles on the lot. And given the current parking plan, that should be in the addition of some spaces based on the parking plan. I did a count that there are, including, I believe, the 2 spaces inside the building in the bays would be 27, if I counted correctly, and would want to include that on the permit. And then there are 2 other conditions in addition to what's in the motion that I would request the board consider. In our last conversation, there was confusion about unregistered vehicles on the lot that were being worked on before being available for sale. And as best I can tell, if the vehicle's unregistered, it's considered in the count for sale under Class 2 dealer license, even if it's not posted, even if it's not ready to be sold. And so I would ask that we add that no more than 6 unregistered vehicles in total be on the lot. That would be the 5 vehicles for sale by the permit, plus the 1 that's allowed per zoning in general. And also, based on some prior conversations, that no cars other than those fueling or purchasing products be parked at the pumps or in the pump area. That the spaces adjacent to the pumps for safety not be used as parking spaces.
You mean the ones like right up?
The
right
ones
closest to
inside the white
sidewalk?
cement catchment area for a gas spill. So in the last meeting, we had a conversation about an employee, there's a pump that's out of service, and the employee's been parking in front of that pump. There's a parking space, but it's not a marked space. So I'd like.
Are you talking about these 2 spaces?
No, I'm talking the ones immediately where you'd have to be to fuel your car.
Where you're actually fueling.
Right.
Okay.
So the 8 spaces that are for fueling be not used as parking and only be used by customers who are fueling or are coming in to talk to you and go into the store, you know, into the office to buy something or arrange a service time, but not be used for extended, you know, not be used as a parking space.
And are you looking for that to be specifically called out? I mean, the parking plan shows the designated parking spaces, so I'm just curious, you're just looking at it.
I am, just for clarification.
Well, I guess if I could just say, what I saw in the motion that we have in front of us is that basically any vehicle in the lot must be parked in its designated spot as shown in the parking plan approved by us this evening. To me means that you can't park.
Okay.
There, it has to be in a designated parking spot. And my question, but you hit it, was I don't view, or my comment was like, I don't view someone that's pumping gas or someone that's in the store making an appointment or buying something. Right. That's transient, that's not parking, so that wouldn't be included. But it's really anything that's parked, so that would include an employee with a spot if one of the pumps wasn't working, that is not a parking spot, because it's not called in the plan.
Right.
So in our motion, that would cover that.
Okay, it's fine. If
yeah.
people are comfortable that that would be redundant, that's fine.
And I almost think that 27 number, I don't know that we have to have in that, because again, I think that's covered by the
Okay.
parking plan. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only comment, we just approved a new dealer's, Class 2 dealer's license, and we were specific to the number of spots, and they were numbered on the parking plan. So I realize this is, I don't want to recreate the wheel here, it's already been approved. I guess,
I just want to clarify one thing. The last thing I want to do is park a car at the pump. If it's affecting everybody, it's affecting my business.
Right.
Sometimes I park a car there for a reason, like, you know, if the pump is not working or something, but it's the last thing I want to do is park a car at the pump. Business has been a little bit slow. Sometimes we park it just to make sure people see that we open, especially on a Sunday. I've been closing on Sunday, so sometimes I park car just to show customers that we are open. But as far as safety, I mean, I take it very seriously. I don't think it's unsafe if we park a car for a little bit at the pump just to bring some attention, like we are open here, because I've been closed for a while. Gas, as far as gas, has been a little bit slow. But if it's unsafe to leave a car for a little bit there, you know, I'll be more than happy to move it. But I didn't think I was doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think that just because we went to the parking plan, I guess my take would be that we don't want that. I would suggest perhaps a flag or something like that to say you're open or
and
something.
There's only one pump that I put a car there that I'm still waiting for a part, and you know, sometimes we move it, sometimes we park it. You know, customer, just put yourself the customer. If you pulled in, you get out, you know, you're trying to pump, it's not working, you get frustrated, you don't pull up to the next one. You don't give me a chance to say, sometimes I run after the customer, just forget it, and they just take off. So I'm trying, you know, I mean well, I'm trying to do the best I can. I don't want to upset customers. You know, after a long day, you know, I want to put some gas and go home and get out of the car. It's cold, the pump is not working. Sometimes they don't even look at a out of order sign. They just get a little frustrated and leave.
Yeah,
this is not my intention, is to leave the car there. You know, it's affecting my business.
Okay. Okay,
I mean, are there any plans to repair that pump?
You know, I'm hoping, they promised me before the end of the year, but it's coming very quickly. So, you know, I get everything. I'm hoping. It's after the pandemic, just the way to do business has been changed. It's very hard to get good help. You know, even emergency stuff, sometimes they don't show up right away. Sure. So it's not as easy to run a business, especially after the pandemic. It's getting very hard, you know. But I want to be in compliance. Safety is number one, and I'm happy to work with everybody, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, so that we're not revisiting this, that pump, and I think that's the one directly across from the store.
I think he is, Mr. Edinburgh, he's relying to that pump. I don't park on any other pump but that one.
Yeah. So I understand what you're saying about, you know, kind of not wanting customers to be irritated. I guess what I would say is the plan that's being presented, that's attached to your license, does not show a parking spot there.
Yes.
And so to keep yourself aligned with the license, I would just say don't put the car there. You know, I know you can't put a cone there because someone will drive over it and then have a problem with their car.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I don't know if you can put a, you know, I don't know, but it's not a designated parking spot, so I would just stay away from it and, you know, mark it not available for use, and
no problem.
Hopefully people that use your.
Hopefully you get it fixed soon, because that's going to be better for your business anyway.
I mean, that's what I want.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to, you know, pump that broken forever. That's not the way I do business. If I can fix it, I would have done it a long time ago. I work on cars, not pumps.
Yeah.
I only count 26 spaces, Alan. You said 27.
Okay, I might have miscounted. I have 26 and 27 in my notes. So
okay.
I had 24.
But again, if people are comfortable that because of the layout of the plan, we don't need to specify a number on the license, I'm comfortable going with that. So the one request would just be to clarify that the
garages.
These are doubles.
I think so. Aren't they? correct me if I'm wrong, are the spaces to the left of the garage, are those double spaces? You double park the cars there?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just like here, but they're
I
hashed.
got you.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I'm comfortable saying it's by the plan right now instead of, I mean, I had different numbers, you guys did, and, I mean, but now I'm looking, I missed the one that's over there, but I'm also fine with the one about unregistered being max of 6. So
Okay.
if someone wants to make the motion, but I do think, thank you for complying
Thank you so
and
much.
working with the town from what
Yes.
we had. This is a much better
Thank you.
meeting.
Okay. I move to renew the Class 2 dealer's license for Westborough Mobile, Inc., DBA Westborough Mobile, at 24 East Main Street with the following conditions and restrictions. No more than 5 vehicles for sale and no more than 6 total unregistered vehicles are allowed on the premises. Any vehicle on the lot must be parked in the designated spots as shown on the parking plan approved by the Select Board on December 17th, 2024. All driveways must remain clear and accessible, and all permits must remain active with inspections completed.
Second.
Sean
got me first, right?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just say, so I'm supportive of the motion, and again, appreciate Mr. Azar's efforts to get to this point. What I would say is, for any Class 2 dealership, any parking plans coming forward, I'd like to see the spaces numbered. Not numbered that the facility has to have them numbered, but numbered.
So we have a number.
So we have a number. So let's not have to revisit this, again for anyone, so.
Makes it easier
Makes
for
sense.
everyone.
Yep.
And then we're not counting here with our fingers.
Yep. Okay, and a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Azar.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Azar.
so much. Happy
Appreciate
holidays.
it. Same to you.
Have a good holiday. I'll look for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Moving on to item 8, Westborough TV financial presentation and discussion.
Are you guys ready, or?
We're ready, I just gotta plug in the.
Okay.
We were just early, I just want to make sure you were all. yeah.
We're good, thank you.
Rarely happens.
It's a good chair.
Dude, don't jinx us again.
I know.
Wait. Hold on, we switched it up. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the correct cord. My eyes are not trailing very well. We're going to use this cord, which is going to go directly into that, which means it's not going to use the splitter.
Don't have them yet.
Right, yeah. Wait, do you have a
I bought a new pair of them.
audio portion of your?
And I plugged it in.
So you do need to use this splitter. We weren't able to use the splitter earlier. You could try it again.
But I think I'm good, right? It's up there right now.
But I don't know if the audio.
Yeah, these ones are old.
So you just put the audio into your laptop.
I think I'll be fine.
Again, we have the
Okay, sorry.
presentation, so if we need
No,
to skip
it's
the
fine.
TV, we can
Believe-
just do up there is fine.
Yeah, we have a presentation in
We have
front of us.
We have this
Yeah.
and in the packet, so either way.
She's a multi-dimensional presentation, so you need to make sure.
Ah.
Oh, well, that's right, there
Oh,
is that.
boy. Here we
Yeah,
go.
they do, they are TV people.
Oh, yeah.
It's the YouTube on slide. 6.
Okay. And you're just gonna
Terrific.
forward it with this arrow.
Well, welcome
Get
Karen,
to
Todd, and
Thank you.
Steve,
And you get to the video.
Bill.
and Bill. Yeah.
We'll get to a black screen. Okay, all right, this way's going away. Go that way. Okay, should be good. All right.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Steve Hart, 22 Brewer Drive, board member and chair of Westborough TV, Inc.
Todd Alexander, 4 Fay Mountain Drive, board member of Westborough TV.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you for giving us the time this evening. You may recall that about 6 months ago, we actually came to you and having identified a problem, an upcoming problem with the funding of Westborough TV and the current model of funding of Westborough TV. At that time, we advised that we had formed a working subcommittee to look solely at the issue and to look at any and every way of how we could address that issue. We're back here this evening to give you an update and also give you an ask. So moving on, and again, just for the benefit of anybody watching us this evening, most of you know the information when it comes to Westborough TV itself. We were established in 2004 as a non-profit organisation. The board, we have 9 members of the board, 4 of whom are actually appointed by yourselves, the select board, and 1 is appointed by the school committee. We welcome them and we enjoy their company and their inputs. And we provide, as you know, PEG, public, educational and government channels throughout the town, across the town. And the funding comes from the, as has been the case for many years now, it comes from the town's contracts with the main cable providers, in this case Verizon and Charter Spectrum. And that's worked pretty well. The money is used to fund the activities of Westborough TV, and we're very, I feel as we go through this, you'll understand that we've been pretty diligent in that. That money so goes to Westborough TV. There's currently no impact on local taxes, and the funding is based on revenues and the number of subscribers Charter and Verizon enjoy. And unfortunately, as I think all of us here tonight know, those numbers have been dropping. And so we've had we continue to see the shift from cable to streaming, so people cutting the cord, and that decrease in cable subscribers is down. Our decrease here in town since 2011 is 44%, and that means that the revenue is down 24%. You may wonder why it's 44% customers, 24% revenue, but of course the cable companies have been increasing their charges to the remaining customers, so it's sort of it's balanced in that way. Now, unfortunately, 6 months ago when we stood here, we actually we were hopeful that the state was in discussion about a state streaming bill, for want of a better title, that would have ensured the state went into discussions and negotiations with streaming companies who are actually using our infrastructure for free, as to raising sort of money through some sort of levy there. That bill, we were hopeful until June, but that bill was withdrawn. I think it was a judicious withdrawal by the sponsors, as it appeared it would not quite get past that on that occasion. They wanted to keep it alive. Yes, there is hope that they will go again, but currently that bill has not produced anything. And so we have one other item, which is Westborough TV itself, and the fact that we've kept going even during these recent times because we have had reserves from the cable income. So in terms of expenses versus revenue, excuse me, our revenue is down 24%. Amazingly, and this isn't just down to the current board, but to my predecessors, and also the staff of Westborough TV, the expenses have remained flat since 2011, up 1.7%. Bet you wish you had that. It's great, it's fantastic, but it can't go on forever. We have managed our resources pretty well, we have managed the finances pretty well, but we are now at a point where there is a projected gap. Our reserves will be down to 0 in 2026, and when I say 2026, that's in line with the town's accounting rather than sort of annual. So in 2026, and we predict, based on the current numbers of the diminishing subscribers and taking a sort of a 4% increase per annum in costs, we see a gap a worst case gap of about nearly 190,000 in financial year 2026, and that gap will continue to increase. Now, when I say worst case, that is because currently we get from the two cable contracts 4% gross annual revenue. So we get that. We do not currently foresee any increase in capital payments after FY26. Neither Charter nor Verizon are continuing to give any capital grants. And we have this, we're advised by our legal advisor, Bill Hewig, as appointed by the town, and he deals with a number of towns, or on behalf of a number of towns, he deals with a number of the cable companies, and that is their current position. But what I would like to, so what we have here is on today's numbers, we can project our revenue, our expenses, capital expenses, and therefore what will continue to be a financial gap. And so in FY26, that's around about nearly 190,000, and it goes out increasingly over the next 5 years. That is based on current numbers, current income against declining revenue, and on Westborough TV's current activities. Before I go further, though, and before we get to the sort of, the main sort of point of being here tonight, something I'd like to do is play you a short video, which I think may bring into context everything that Westborough TV stands for.
The reality is that people are busy, and there's a lot out there to grab our attention. And Westborough TV is there to capture the moments that matter, whether it's a sports contest or a government meeting or a community event that's going on. It really helps you develop a sense of pride in what is going on and what this community has to offer.
I think it's not important that we have Westborough TV continue. I think it's vital. I believe that before a citizen of Westborough goes to town meeting, that they should be well informed. In fact, I think they have an affirmative responsibility to be well informed before they vote on the articles that are in the warrants. It's impossible, I believe, for any person to attend the multiple meetings that are going on. In fact, tonight we have a conflict with the Advisory Finance Committee. Westborough TV fills that void through providing information for the citizens of Westborough to be able to make informed decisions. This is the pinnacle of democracy. If Westborough TV has to reduce its services, it diminishes this community. Thank you.
The voices you heard there, the people you heard speaking, were just two of over 40 who attended the ascertainment meeting that we hold during the course of negotiations. Currently, the town is in negotiations with Charter. I happen to be a member of the town's cable advisory committee along with Shelby Marshall, and I see the chair of that committee has just popped in, Brian McLaughlin. We really feel that we have the support of the community, and if you don't believe that, just go and watch the recording of that ascertainment meeting. It was fantastic. But moving on, I gave you the worst possible numbers because that's where we are today. Without getting into the detail, as I mentioned, the town is currently in negotiation with Charter. The ask of Charter is to obviously try and get the maximum the town can from that contract. If we succeed in that, and it is an if, there is the potential for an improvement in the Verizon contract because we ensured that was written into the last renewal. If we can get Charter to the maximum, then Verizon will actually pop up in that respect. If that were to happen, then it does have an impact on the numbers. And so what we have here is a new set of numbers that actually brings us down to a gap in 2026 of just over 150 as compared to the nearly 190. And going out to 2030, we're at 262 as opposed to about nearly 330. So you can see the impact of those negotiations, and we're hopeful of success. But there is no guarantee, and so I cannot stand here and give you numbers based on that, certainly not tonight. I mentioned the fact that we formed a subcommittee. My good friend Todd is actually the chair of that subcommittee, so he's just going to give you some feedback on what we looked at and what considerations we gave. Oh, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So, as Steve mentioned, we did form a subcommittee, which Shelby was a part of, myself, Steve, Bill Linane also was a member of that, and we took a look at a number of different opportunities. Obviously, Steve already touched upon the cable contracts and the streaming bills. We looked at fundraising efforts, which there are some opportunities, and we plan on taking part in that and pursuing some of those types of things. A capital campaign drive, things like that. We talked about having, the typical thermometer outside with the money that we've raised. But the bottom line is, with those sort of activities take a lot of manpower, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it really is. It would add some supplemental funding to us, but it wouldn't close the gap. The gap we're talking about here is just far too much for something like that. Unless we had a full-time development officer that could go out and really, try and raise funds for us, we found that it wouldn't be enough for us. But again, there's things that we feel we can partake in, and opportunities you'll see now, like even on the website, we have the QR code that people can donate to now, so we're trying to build upon that. We also took a look at, possibly what we could do with our biggest asset, which is our building. We looked at whether or not we could potentially do a sale leaseback opportunity. Market value for that property is probably about $585,000, thereabouts. We have about another $100,000 in capital construction costs that we know we would have to do. Bottom line is that we can get into the details and we can talk about it, but when you looked at the 5-year lease commitment, if we did a sale leaseback, I think it netted us a little bit over $100,000, which doesn't even close our gap for fiscal year 2026. One of the other things we looked at was if we were to sell the building and maybe relocate into a town-owned property, like perhaps a new community center or something like that. Again, taking a look at the sale proceeds less the capital costs that would be taken into any sort of sale from a potential buyer. They'd obviously want to negotiate on that, but factoring in the new build-out costs into a new location, it was pretty much a wash, really. Granted, there are some benefits, and there are also some things. you know, as far as new space and how we could be a part of the community, but overall, from a financial perspective, it just didn't make sense. You know, it was really, that was not even a Band-Aid at best, so. And then, obviously, one of the things we discussed, and I think is really, would be the last thing that we still would have to consider, depending on funding, is a decrease in the services that we offer. And, you know, the amount of employee time we have and people working on the number of programs that we do, we'd have to probably significantly reduce what we have done. And I know Karen's done a great job of documenting all the programs that we've done over the last couple of years. And I think that, to Steve's point earlier, I think, you know, I think the town would, as a community, would suffer as a result of that. And that's, if it was something we needed to do, it's something we've looked at and would consider if we have to. And then, obviously, one of the things that could be done is integrating Westborough TV into a town department. I think there are some concerns regarding independence and you know, broadcasting and other things like that. And then last, what we're here to talk about tonight is what sort of opportunities there are as far as supplemental funding from the town. We've had a couple of meetings with Christy and John Steinberg, and we think we have maybe some opportunities there that we'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah, if I may, just the the one from last, the integration as town department. There are some towns where the cable TV station, the local station, is part of the town. I have to say that we look at them and we say, well, there's two things. They're certainly not doing as much as we are. They certainly don't have the flexibility that we have. They certainly aren't able to operate at short notice. And they certainly are not as much part of the town as Westborough TV. And that's just the surface. And so, yes, at the end of the day, we come to you, you know, to talk about the possibility of supplemental funding, because that's really the only route we see, unless anybody has any other thoughts. We come here with a recommendation. It's, you know, to make up the shortfall as it is today, because, and hopefully it will not be as bad as it is today, but currently the numbers. We've had the recent cable public hearing, the ascertainment meeting across the entire town, and as I say, we had many people come and speak. We hope to maintain Westborough TV's independence. What we are following discussions with Christy in particular and John Steinberg, we're very open if there's any concerns to some form of memorandum of understanding or a service level objectives, whatever you want to call it. I refrain from saying contract. We do not want to appear to be anything than part of the town, of use to the town, meaningful to the town. And sometimes I find that, you know, contracts and written words and paragraphs actually don't help that sort of relationship. But we're very happy to enter into any sort of agreement that the town feels comfortable with, you know, should there be supplemental funding. One other thing I should mention is, of course, that we are currently, technically, the money that comes into the town from the cable companies, from Charter and Verizon, is passed through an enterprise fund. It passes to us. I confess I'm not overly familiar with enterprise funds. I know we now have 5 in town, one of which I guess is pay-as-you-go, which is the Gulf. The other ones are the water and the sewer and the storm water. You know, unfortunately, this is another, you know, an area where there may be expense. We recognize that. We will do everything we can to limit that expense. But at the end of the day, if the town wishes us to continue to do what we do, and by the way, I think just government meetings alone, if you go back to pre-COVID, Karen, you have the numbers of what we were doing.
So yeah, pre-COVID, the 2019 year, we did 103 meetings, and this past year, well, as of last week, we were at 176.
So it's not as though, given that less than 2% increase in our costs over many years, that we actually aren't delivering more for the town, and we're very proud of that fact. So I guess, finally, before we take any questions, is we've talked about next steps, that the funding shortfall, in our opinion, requires addressing. We've tried to align our numbers, or we have aligned our numbers with the town's budget years. We have had discussions with Christie and John Steinberg and taken guidance, and I hope, Christie, we haven't said anything that doesn't reflect that. And we're really here to request a next step decision from yourselves. Is what would you like us to do next? Because we want to find a solution. We hope that you too want to find a solution. And so I'm open to questions and thoughts and suggestions.
Well, thank you very much for presenting. Certainly, Westborough TV is a incredibly valuable resource to the town, so I thank you for all the work and the team's been doing, and I'll open it up to the board for any questions. Go ahead, Alan.
First of all, I definitely recognize the need for Westborough TV and the value it brings to the community. And the increase in coverage, for us on the government side has definitely had a positive impact on community engagement and community involvement. And it's important for that to continue. You've looked at some of the alternate sources of funding. I'm just hoping that even if we proceed with some supplemental funding from the town, that some of those other ideas are still pursued. And I know that, and I've had a long time ago, Karen and I had a conversation, Framingham Public Access, they have a membership system, and local businesses that are involved in video production are able to rent the studio and equipment to do production work and things of that nature. I know it won't come close to closing the gap, but if there's whether it's the public TV model of sponsorship underwriting to a certain extent for corporations and individuals or foundations, that type of revenue generation for the facility, and does that, that can come with cost, like do you need an employee there to keep an eye on things when the studio is being used by someone who's renting it, that even though those may not make up a majority of the gap, that if we're going to approach the town for supplemental town funding, that some of those be under consideration, planning, or an action, so that it's clear that Westborough TV as an organization is looking at every opportunity.
I fully appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, I think, and I can only talk to the last few years, but even before me. Certainly, I think the environment in which we've been operating, has obviously changed. When this started, there was income from the cable companies. I do feel that we need to look at the composition of, such as the board itself. I've mentioned the 5 appointees of the town, but also we also appoint at large. I don't think anybody up until now has said to any of those individuals, oh, by the way, if we can't fund this through the town's enterprise fund, you're on the hook. It doesn't work like that. But I do understand what you're saying, Alan. Most certainly, I think not just the use of our facilities themselves, but we have other thoughts on, we're looking at other stations as to just what quite apparently they do. We're not allowed to carry advertising. We can seek sponsorship of programs with mention of commercial business, but it's not going to raise much. But again, it's another step. It's possible that our Facebook page and social media can be used to monetize at least something. And these are the things that I think our board really has to zone in on this coming 12 months and say, okay, we need a plan, we need to put some numbers around this, but we also need to find as Todd said, we need to find the sort of the people power who are wanting and willing to do that.
Go ahead, Karen.
Patrick, I just wanted to add in that as soon as the subcommittee was formed by the board and the discussion started with, well, what are we going to do to fill this gap? The board directed me to start to look for grants, and so we did that earlier after we came to you back in May, and we have secured through the end of this year, it'll be about $22,000 in grants from about 4 different sources. So absolutely, part of our plan would be to continue with that in addition to any funding we get from the town, and then going forward, that would not, I don't anticipate that type of thing would stop. But just so you know, we already have done that this year. The board directed me to get right on that.
Yeah, my apologies for not mentioning that, possibly because in my mind they're one-offs, and again, no guarantees that they'll be there next year. But yes, we are taking steps, and it's beginning to show some fruit, so that's great.
Other questions?
Well, just one quick question for Christy. Does Westborough currently assess a property tax on utility poles and wires over public ways?
I'd have to check with John, because I know that we were going back and forth on our ability to do that.
Okay.
Can you clarify your question?
So,
I thought we did.
when I saw this on the agenda, I did a little wonky Google searching, and it appears that in 2003 there was a ruling by the Massachusetts Tax Appellate Board that said towns can charge a tax on wires that run along public ways. Okay. And poles. So
We've had fights over it too.
Yeah, well, that's what I was.
Yes. We've had lawsuits.
Yeah.
But I think we've been successful on that
Can
too.
you
But
just finish, just for the public's benefit?
Right. So it's an additional revenue opportunity. And so the reason I was asking is if we weren't currently doing that, that's something we could consider that would be revenue relative to the way Westborough TV signal makes it into our homes and businesses.
And again, just the charges to
The charges against the utility that owns
the line.
the poles and the lines on them. And so National Grid and the other utilities would pay for that, or National Grid would pay for it and then charge through to the other utilities, depending on who owns the pole. So, but if it's something we're already doing, then it's already in the revenue stream for the town. It's not.
No, I am just certain that the neighboring towns are facing this as well, and I think many of them have probably already started financially supporting their TV stations. I think you've done a tremendous job sort of managing yourself financially and holding out as long as you can, given the environment. Thank you for that, and I do support us determining some sort of agreement going forward to try and support Westborough TV. It is vital to this town. It is how a tremendous percentage of the town keeps in touch with what's going on. So thank you very much, and I look forward to trying to be creative over the next few months to figure this out. Thanks.
Well, thank you for your comments, Sean. Just not anecdotal, just a fact. Yes, we're aware that some towns, or at least one of our neighbouring towns, has moved to supplemental funding. We're also aware that in other towns the service is becoming less frequent, and a very good example is on this Thanksgiving Day. We had over 1,000 people watching the traditional football game on Thanksgiving morning, playing out on Westborough TV. That football game was not being filmed by Northborough, where the game was being held, because Northborough did not have the capacity or ability to cover the game. Westborough TV covered that game because we felt it important. But that's the sort of thing that's beginning to happen, is a deterioration in service, and we wish to avoid that, and we believe the town would like us to avoid that.
I would just echo Sean's comments. I think we've talked about it in this board before is, you know, in many cases we don't see a lot of people in the audience for our meetings, but I can't tell you how many people come up and comment or say something about our meetings, including the bald spot in the back of my head. And I've talked to Karen about fixing that camera behind me. But to me, it's amazing the amount. I shouldn't say amazing, but it is impressive how many people in this town receive access to what goes on in this town from Westborough TV. And I agree with what Mr. Beretti said in the video of, I think, how important that is. Because we talk about a board and we struggle with educating folks and keeping folks informed. That I think one of the best, if not the best, place that we do that today is through Westborough TV and to the work of Karen and her team. So like Todd and Alan, I'm supportive of the work you're doing right now in terms of kind of alternative sources of funding. I think we as a board can also continue to work with our state representatives. I'm disappointed that we haven't seen progress there, because I think that would help not just us, but really every community in the state. So I think we should continue to work on that. But I am supportive of you know, working or having our town manager work with you to figure out supplemental funding that can come from the town side. So I'm fully supportive of that, because I do think it's essential for this community to have the continued access that Westborough TV provides. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So did you have anything?
I'll come.
Okay. So I just, I guess, Steve, just educate me a little bit. You made a comment a moment ago about, and I was surprised that it wasn't on the list of funding opportunities, was advertising. You mentioned that that's not possible. Why is that?
We start with the federal level and work down, but it's just, and I'm going to be extremely honest with you. I cannot point you to the exact matter of the law. What I can tell you is that as of yesterday, we and Select Board Member Shelby here actually, as part of, during our Cable Advisory Committee, did ask our legal representative his opinion on advertising. Shelby, do you wish to speak to that?
So Westborough TV under Mass General Law, this is according to council, I'm paraphrasing here, works much like the same, and Alan used the word, it's kind of like, it works like underwriting. So it could be like, this program brought to you by, you know, through the underwriting of the blah, blah, blah company, right? But you can't be like, you know, Joe's Bar and Grill advertising, pay for pure advertising. Yeah. So it's not allowed.
Right.
It's not allowed by law.
I liken it to PBS. Yeah. I liken the channel maybe inappropriately to similar to being like PBS.
Yeah, correct.
And you know, PBS has at the beginning of their shows, this is sponsored by such and such and such and such. And you know, Viking Cruises is an example. You see them all over, right? So
we talked about Viking Cruises specifically.
Yeah. So you know, so it sounds like there are some opportunities there.
I'm not going to go so far as to, yes, some opportunities, limited. I have to say that in part of my research, it does become very clear that as you get into it, the arrangements for PEG, the public educational and government, is just that, and any monies from the cable contracts that we enjoy may only be spent on public education and government. And so I think there's something there that means that people are wary of any form of advertising, because that doesn't fall into any of those three categories. That's my reading of it. I cannot be assured, but as Shelby mentioned, you know, we did speak with legal advice yesterday. We certainly will explore it and take any opportunity that arises.
Thank you. I just am hugely supportive of Westborough TV, and my 4 years on the board here, I've seen the scope and the breadth of the work that the team does to bring, you know, the events and the really the history of the community forward. So it is a fantastic resource. I am cautiously supportive. I'm a little bit leery of subsidizing a nonprofit. I think there's a little bit of a slippery slope there when we talk about other nonprofits in town and what that, you know, what the standard that this sets. But this is a unique particular service that's provided to the town. You just mentioned the football game. You could probably mention, as the video showed, hundreds of others. And I myself use it when I can't attend a meeting. I go back and look and verify maybe what I said or what somebody else said. So hugely valuable in a very unique way. So thank you. Now I'll leave it to Shelby.
Yeah, so I would say just to my lens, and I've been very deeply involved through the Cable TV Advisory Committee, as well as being a member of the Westborough TV Finance Subcommittee. It is very obvious to me that the importance of Westborough TV on the transparency in government actions cannot be understated. Certainly since COVID, but even more so presently now, like 2024 going forward. We heard earlier in open forum, tonight, and we've heard in all of our past 5 or 6 meetings in open forum about the importance of transparency in government, and as well as the known challenges with getting information out to the public. And Westborough TV, where I'm going with this is I would like to see every board and committee meeting either recorded by Westborough TV, or at least if recorded through like Zoom or something, archived and managed by Westborough TV so it's accessible. Because we have how many boards do we have? Committees, 70, something like that? We have a lot of committees meeting, and to the point that was made earlier at open forum, you know, minutes are not intended to be a transcription of the meeting. That is not the purpose, that's not what they're required. But if you go to find that information, that's kind of what you're expecting. And when you get something substandard, in this day and age, when you can find out information about everything, it kind of feels you're leaving icky. I don't know, it's like, what happened? I don't know. And then it creates a lot of work. And, you know, sometimes people have time for it because they have a passion for it or a particular interest, but oftentimes people don't. And so they're left with a feeling of, I don't know what's going on, and, you know, and they're annoyed, quite frankly. So I think the importance of Westborough TV around transparency cannot be understated. I would also say that it creates huge efficiencies, in spite of our inefficiencies at times, in government, because we have, Alan mentioned, Patrick mentioned, you know, board members like ourselves go and reference other meetings. And so that ultimately makes a more effective, more informed meeting, whether you're an appointed member or an elected member. It also helps our town staff, should they need to go reference a meeting, and certainly the public at large. But the government efficiency side, I think, is also very important. And it creates, where we operate as separate boards and committees, it creates some dotted line to those boards and committees so that there's at least visibility. No one can say, well, I don't know what's going on with the planning board. Well, yeah, you could, because just go to Westborough TV, you gotta have the time to do it, but at least it's there. I appreciate the board's comments, and I fully support an expectation, if we were to kind of create some sort of service agreement, an expectation of alternate pursuit of funding and a specific plan around that. Ultimately, that would be under the jurisdiction of Westborough TV as a nonprofit, but that, you know, that there would be an expectation there that is there, and I think some great ideas were given. I love that. I also think that this board's support of the streaming bill and continuing to help and give voice from the community to our legislators is important, and we should continue that. And more specifically to the plan, I think we need to dig into the advertising underwriting part of it and understand what the possibilities are. So I'm a little more bullish on that than maybe some. I will say that when we started this process, I started probably with a bias that, well, maybe Westborough TV should become part of like some sort of town communications arm. And Mr. Hart mentioned this already, or maybe, I'm sorry, maybe it was Mr. Alexander, that that there is, I think there's something very refreshing about Westborough TV is they're recording the meeting. They're just recording the meeting. And sometimes they're putting on a great video, and so they're putting some artistic aspect to it. But I think the independence of Westborough TV is critically important to maintaining that healthy balance between we're here to support, we, Westborough TV, are here to support and create value in the town through all the different ways in which we do that, and yet we can maintain our independence. And I think that is, I think that's very important. It changed my mind because I was pretty head down, this is the way we need to go. And so I do think that the mechanics of how we do this, I'll be looking forward to hearing from Christy and John how we can do this, but I'm wholly supportive of some sort of supplemental funding from the town on this. I will say, a couple meetings ago, I said, we need to control our spending. You know, and we're all nodding our heads. I gotta say, this one is different, and because of the reasons, I'm not gonna go into it, that I've already stated around kind of efficiency of government, transparency of government, and the work of Westborough TV is foundational to, I think, successful governance in Westborough. So with that, turn it back to you.
Thank you, Shelby. And I'll just say, as you were speaking, it made me think about, do we want PBS or do we want C-SPAN? Because there's a very big difference in kind of how those systems are set up, but they're both public, my understanding is public broadcasting tools, and I think that's what we're talking about when it comes to some sort of subsidized through advertising piece of it. So I'm supportive of the idea of beginning the work through Christie to have those conversations. I'm hopeful that the whole gap doesn't have to be filled by the town. I think that's what you're hearing from the other board members here as well. So thank you very much. I'll see if there's any last comments. Or
can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Just in looking at the different ways that you can fund a TV station, or the way that other towns can do it, we worked sort of through that. I don't think that we fully understand all of the options, but I think as we've had this discussion, it's not as much a discussion about subsidizing as it is the town paying for the service that we're receiving. And I think that that's a really important nuance, because if Westborough TV is unable to continue, we won't have that, and we won't have the coverage and the meetings and all of that, and we'll have to pursue that elsewhere. And so the discussion that we've had to this point, and certainly we'll have to work through all of the details of that, is an agreement similar to what we have with Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. We're not subsidizing that nonprofit. They're providing a service that we are paying for. And so that's really how we've started to talk about that. And certainly that would be for the board to ultimately approve that type of agreement. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, that's a good nuance to call out. I'm just curious, how do you, as you think about this and you see the numbers up there, the volume of the bulk of the work, coverage of town meetings versus school board meeting versus high school activity versus senior center activity, do you see that there's that this is an item that could be split between the school budget versus the town budget, or is this something that would fall exclusively under the town budget? Meaning if it's a service we're paying for and the school's got, yeah. The numbers, I was kind of a kick in my neck, I couldn't see them, but there's a percentage that's school and a percentage versus town.
I think the way that we've talked about it is that it would be included in our fixed costs. So currently the fixed costs, it's not within a specific department, so it's not within the school department or others, but it's insurance, it's debt, it covers all of our liability. And so I think that we view this as something that would be, beneficial through and used by all of the departments, and so we would identify it, we think, at this point as a fixed cost.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, just hearing your comments, and again, we really do appreciate your support. What I would like to say is that we are very open and we are looking at, can we do more within our current costs or within the costs as we see them? And if we find a way that's workable of covering every government meeting, we too support that proposition. But obviously we have to look at the cost of doing that and the technology that might be required. But certainly, if that's something that the town would like as part of the way we go forwards, as part of an assurance that we're doing everything we can, then please, yes, we will do our best to address that.
Thank you. Okay. No further comments. I'll look for a motion.
Is there a motion?
I'd move to authorize the town manager to negotiate an agreement with Westborough TV for fiscal year 2026 to bring to the board for consideration.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Can I just ask a question? I'm very comfortable with that. Should we have a member of the board working with you on that?
I think initially we're looking at sort of all the options. So, I mean, I think as where you're represented on the Cable and TV Advisory Committee, it's up to the board.
I'm certainly not putting myself out there for it. I mean, I'm probably the obvious one, but I'm just wondering if as part of this motion, you need that, or I'm thinking we don't.
I don't think we need it right now because we're really starting from, at this point, there's just a lot of sort of research and learning to do. But I do think at some point, having someone more familiar with the details once we're ready to create the agreement would be helpful.
Okay, good question. Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a
And
great rest of your night.
on behalf of Westborough TV, our best wishes for a safe, peaceful, a very happy holiday season. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 9. 3 minutes off schedule. Consideration of 2025 renewal of liquor license, common victual, and innkeeper and hotel permits. Christy, can you?
Yeah, I can give a brief update. So as the board is aware, every year businesses are required to renew several licenses and permits, and the ones under the board and that are issued through our department are liquor licenses, common victualler licenses, and then hotel innkeeper permits. And so as part of Mass General Law, in order for us to renew licenses, they're required to pass certificates of inspection, or they're required to receive certificates of inspection. Those inspections occur through our fire department and also our building department. And so these were sent out to all license holders, or the information about the renewals and the renewal packages were sent out to all license holders at the end of October and beginning of November. And so the license holders that you have before you today have not completed all of the requirements in order to have the renewal. We did have discussions with a couple license holders, I think, at the end of last year. As you might remember, essentially, the board, I think, asked questions about, why they were not in compliance and why they hadn't completed what they needed to. We also have our building commissioner and our fire department here. You can ask questions of them as well. And so the ones listed on the agenda are the ones, I think they are all here. The COOP, which is listed on your agenda, actually received their certificate of inspection today, so they are not here because they have received everything that they needed, and so were renewed. I guess I would just add that as we experienced last year, you are able to extend innkeeper and convict permits into the new year. Last year you did that based on there not being any immediate life safety concerns. You are not able to extend liquor licenses into the new year.
Open up for discussions and questions.
Do you want to hear?
Yes, I want to hear from them.
Yeah, break.
So let's take them in order.
Yeah, we'll take them in order. So we'll take Tavolino Italian Gourmet, Restaurant 33 East Main Street.
Hi, I'm Graham Silliman. I am the owner of Tavolino Restaurant, and I have with me Abby Wynant, who's our general manager, and Kevin Sanders, our executive chef. We're here before you with our 16th annual license renewal. It is the first time we've been live before you. Normally this just goes through and we're not even here. And I would like to emphasize that we're a little embarrassed about that. And we do apologize to the selectmen, to the select board staff, to the building department staff, and to the fire department. We don't want to take any time of people. We actually have a number of issues. We were inspected today at 1:30, and some issues were found as failures. We have a list of what they all are, and the short answer to all of this is we believe these can all be resolved easily before the end of the year. Would you agree?
I agree.
All right, and then I guess I would point, the fire department would need to weigh in, and the building department. Just as clarification, some of the things that we found out about as failures turn out to be failures of record keeping that we were not aware of. There is a quirk in the way that we assemble documentation for the certificate of inspection. We need to get some building-wide documents that relate to fire protection, lighting, horns, sprinkler systems, and we do not directly control any of that. And we actually, our landlord doesn't allow us to speak to their vendor directly. So we go through our landlord. We did find out today that certain things that were done, we were completely unaware of, and certain things that are listed as failed were actually repaired, but we didn't have the document. So it's not that we had people in the building without sprinklers and they were at risk. It's that we didn't have the sprinkler document. We did receive fire protection documents from the landlord. We don't know what we're looking at. We receive it and we send it on. And it's been pointed out, we now know what we're looking at. And this year, for the first time, there were some other interesting wrinkles. For example, the fire vendor has split into two companies. So sprinklers are different from lights. We had no idea. We received things from one company, and we didn't know that this year we have to request our landlord to go to two companies. We didn't know when we received that. So again, there are some documents. There are some repairs that were made that we were unaware of, that no one told us. We have obtained those documents. So some things have already been remedied or are on their way to being remedied right now. There are a couple of physical equipment issues related to light bulbs, emergency lights, blinking red battery needs to be replaced. All of these things we believe can be remedied within just a couple of days. It's just a matter, an electrician has already been to the premises this afternoon. He just has to get the parts. And then there is a final thing that's an odd one for us. There is something called a radio master box from an old fire protection system that used to exist in Westborough that was in our building when we opened in 2009. We have no idea what that box is. We have no idea what it does. We've never paid attention to it. And it does need to be removed, but that's a building-wide thing that we knew nothing about. We now do know about it. We have been made aware that the landlord has known about it. We feel pretty confident that that's easy to do before the end of the year. Again, we've done this 15 times before without incident. We're embarrassed that here we are at the last minute before you, but if the building and fire department would agree, or if they want to workshop on any specific item, we think this can all be resolved. And I don't know if you meet again this year, but if you wanted to give Sella or Destiny the license pending, weighing in from the fire chief and the building commissioner, or whatever mechanism you are comfortable with, we think we can comply.
Well, thank you for coming in tonight and talking with us. I'll open up to the board and see if there's any questions. And then should we hear from Pat on case by case, or how do we want to do that?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I would prefer to hear from
Pat
and Bill.
Yeah,
Yes.
so why don't you
First.
move aside and we'll have our fire chief come up. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, good evening. Patrick Purcell, your fire chief. There it is. Patrick Purcell serving as your fire chief. So my fire inspectors conducted an inspection there. Tavolino's is not a habitual offender. We've had some landlord issues relative to the radio master box that's there. They were served a certified letter, I think in April or May, that the town was doing away with that system. It's the middle of December and it's not done yet. They were put on notice again today. It's not Tavolino's fault. The things that were found in error from their third-party vendor, not from the fire department necessarily. Being that they're not a habitual offender, if you do grant their license tonight, we can follow up with that. And if it's not corrected within the proper amount of time, usually we give 21 days, we could pursue a non-criminal fire code violation, which is the equivalent of a speeding ticket. Usually never gets to that. We don't write many of those at all. And if it became problematic, we could come back before you in January when you come back. It's really, they're really not.
Yeah, Christy, we can't extend beyond the end of the year, correct?
You can't for the liquor license, and you need a certificate of inspection to renew. So, but I think what your vote would likely be is that they could. It sounds like they think that they'll get things done in time. So we would issue the license, assuming that we received everything, so they would be able to move forward.
So they would have to be re-inspected before the end of the year?
Yes.
At which point?
For the liquor license.
For the liquor license piece of it, yeah, okay. So in the likelihood of you, I mean, obviously we're relying on them getting their piece done, but you guys can get in there as soon as they...
What does the scheduling look like?
They were here today. He's ordering parts. It could be done by Friday. I guess my question is, next week is Christmas week. Is there an
No, we'll be there. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
We work every day except
24/7.
We don't close.
There's no locks on the doors.
I just wanted to make sure as well.
No, we'll make sure it's done. If the inspector's unavailable, the shift commander can go, and if they can't go, I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate that.
I'm comfortable leaving it up to the chief.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Do you have anything from the building inspector?
Come on up, Mr. Heslett.
There's one here both sides, if that's okay.
Yeah.
No, I definitely would reiterate what Pat said.
Just introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Bill Heslett, Building Commissioner. Newbie.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, just exactly what Pat said. I feel the same way about Cavalinos and everything. They've been consistent throughout all the years and everything. We just like to expedite these things and not drag them on during the year, get things done in a shorter period of time, get things closed out and everything. That's what we're looking for.
And you not being a fire department, you're not available 24/7 to go.
Not 24/7, but
okay.
I will.
But
definitely for Tavolinos or anybody, yeah.
But it sounds like they're going to hopefully be in good shape in the next week or so.
I think so.
You should be able to get over there and get through this process.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, I just want to make a comment. So to the Tavolino team, so I appreciate and thank you to Chief Purcell and to Bill, our commissioner. So appreciate you recognizing, first of all, celebration of your 15 years, no issues, right? Appreciate the kind of humble pie acknowledgement. I would ask that it not happen again. I'm sure it won't happen again. You guys have a great reputation. I certainly appreciate and am aware of some of the landlord issues that have happened over the past year. Heard some of those meetings, and what I would say is Even though they're the landlord issues, you still have a responsibility under your license. I think you realize that now, to pay attention to those other details. You own them as being a lessor. I think you recognize that. Own them in the sense of you need to be aware of them because they tie to your license. You can't control them, but awareness, and I appreciate that acknowledgement. So I'm supportive of the, I just don't want to see you guys back here again. It was just, and I know you don't want to be here either. So, and I guess final comment, I do appreciate your understanding of the time that it takes, particularly not so much from this board, but from our staff, Sela and Destiny and others, in chasing. That's just time, and you know, that's like kind of putting our money out the window. So appreciate your attention to avoiding that in the future.
So what?
So in this case, you could move to release the liquor license contingent on them passing the annual inspection and our office receiving that by 3 p.m. on December 31st, because that's when we're closing on New Year's Eve. For the convict, you could extend the license until your January 14th hearing, or your January 14th meeting, where you would receive an update unless they've come into compliance, and then the license would be issued.
And it sounds like they may come into compliance on both before December 31st.
It does.
They wouldn't need
This
to
would
appear.
just give you that.
Well, let's just say, I'll say so moved, not, yeah, that's.
Okay.
I think that point, with the common vic, they can continue in business, still serving food until that next meeting. The issue is the liquor license, we can't extend beyond the deadline, so that has to be fixed. I think you probably want both fixed at the same time. Yeah. But I think the motion, we can extend it just in case there's something if it's just related to the common vic, you can still operate, serve food, and serve alcohol if you pass the inspection. So I think that motion is the best one. And from what you said, I'd expect that we won't need to see you in front of us for that meeting because it will be resolved, but it just gives us the opportunity in case it's necessary.
Do we have a second?
We do.
Is that
Second. Seconded, yep. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck, yes.
Sorry to have been a bother.
No.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, move on to Ono O'Leary's. They're here. Terrific. Welcome, just to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kevin Gill, the owner of Owen O'Leary's Restaurants. We had an inspection, I think December 10th. I was late getting my hoods done, and I'm 100% guilty. We had them out there on that one freezing day in very late November. Their hoses burst, and we have a high-pitched roof. They were afraid they were going to slide off on ice. I said, okay. Then they came back to Southborough on December 2nd. They do them both on the same night. And I asked them, are you going over to Westborough? They said no. And then we rescheduled, and I didn't realize it was a big a deal as it is, first of all. So I'm learning. Even though I've been doing this I've owned Southborough 35 years, it's still a learning experience for me. The second offense had to do with a CO2 detector, which are installed in breweries. And I was clueless that this had to be calibrated every single year for the last 5 years. I did not know that. We brought in a brand new one the next day. The hoods were done that day that we were inspected. So the two offenses were repaired within 12 hours. And I've had a little history with the fire department. Again, it's a learning experience. We inherited a bad building as far as the dry sprinkler system. Last year, we put in $84,000 of my money into a building I don't own just to stay in business, with hopes I might get some money from the landlord, but didn't quite come. And I'm not sure I think everything is all set. I think it all was all set that day. We were shut down from 11:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night when the hoods were completed, and then they reopened us.
All right, thank you. I guess I'll look for the chief to come up and.
Sorry.
Hi, sorry, Patrick Purcell, your fire chief. Not really sure where to begin. So, Tavolino's was not a habitual offender. We do have a lot of issues with fire code at Owen O'Leary's. Been there 10 times this year for false alarms, a lot of sprinkler problems. Currently, as I stand before you tonight, the fire alarm is in trouble. Yesterday when we checked on it, it was actually an alarm. Recently, there was some duct detector work that was done, and historically, as people have done any work in ducts, they have an option to make the detector notify, that type of detector go into a supervisory mode to notify the owner, not the fire department. That one keeps notifying the fire department. The carbon dioxide issue in the basement, I think, is more significant than we ever realized. So there is no ventilation system down there, and the carbon dioxide level on brewing days becomes high where it's lethal. And the solution to vent it out is to open an exterior door. So if that's slammed shut and somebody's down there, wintertime, etc., if it's overlooked, displaces oxygen, and then you have a significant medical issue leading to possibly death. So it is important to have the CO2 detectors calibrated. We're also looking into some things through OSHA right now regarding ventilation. We've had some other code enforcement issues that came before the hearing officer this year at that location. It's kind of problematic ongoing for a while.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So the CO2 calibration has been fixed, or is that a Bill question?
No, that's an us question. Kevin, is it fixed?
They put a brand new one in.
Okay. The venting is still
Yep.
an issue, correct?
Yeah, so we're working through that. We're not sure, based on this difference, you know, there's different ways of methods of licensure for breweries.
Yeah.
We're kind of in uncharted territory. We just came across this by mistake, but that's
Okay.
relevant as far as us moving forward, the fire department moving forward, but I thought it was important for you to know.
Yeah. And then the hood issue that.
That's resolved.
That is resolved. That's what I understood. I just want to hear from all parties.
Yes. So if you would like to know the history of that, so when you have a cooking hood in town, those are regulated, the frequency of cleaning those hoods is regulated by the vendor themselves. Traditionally, anybody that cooks with grease, it's every 3 months. Why it is significant is people that overlook that. There was a fatal fire that killed 2 firefighters in Boston when one of those lit and collapsed down on top of them. That's when it became a fire code. That's why we have a zero tolerance for that. We are very well known, as many departments are, for enforcing that provision of the code because it can be catastrophic. And we have a lot of problems with that enforcement also. People fraudulently make stickers. People have blank stickers they fill out by themselves, and that's in restaurants here in our community that we've come across. So it is an issue, and we have zero tolerance for uninspected hoods and uncleaned hoods.
Go ahead.
So I just have a question of where we stand tonight, so.
It stands tonight that the fire alarm is in trouble, the duct detectors are in trouble. I'm not sure what else is wrong, but we found it in alarm yesterday with no manager on the premises. Today we found it in trouble with no management on the premises. I believe, from what I heard from Kevin, is that he has ordered some parts, or somebody's ordered some parts and they're coming back to fix it. Currently, the fire alarm is out of service. It's going to be your judgment call, but we do have more issues there than most places, most restaurants.
Okay. I guess my question is where this stands in terms of timing, issuing permits, whatever. So I'm assuming those two things are part of getting a certificate of inspection. Is that correct?
Yes.
A proper certificate of inspection.
Yes, correct, Bill?
Correct.
Yes. I just had my list. Sorry, I'm on my phone. I have my list. Just want to make sure I'm not missing something. No, that was it.
Okay, and like the same question, the certificate of inspection is required for the liquor license.
I will say on a positive note, we had a lot of sprinkler issues there in the past, and Kevin did install a brand new sprinkler system there. That seems to be working well. Those nuisance alarms are gone. I think he's on the upswing, personally, but it's been some work.
What's that?
Bill, what do we,
I guess I have a question about your brewing beer in the basement.
We brew beer upstairs
Come forward. Sorry.
and we ferment in the basement. The fermenting creates carbon dioxide. We never thought it was an issue. We do have detectors down there. They don't go off, but we noticed that day he didn't want anyone in the basement, so we shut the basement down. I closed the basement door, so there was zero ventilation while one of the fermenters was fermenting, and it didn't go into alarm, but it had elevated to a, I would say, a dangerous level. It was over 1,000 ppm. Generally, our basement would be around 700 parts per million. And with that one fermenter going, it was over 1,000 with the basement door closed. Now, when we open the basement door, the kitchen exhaust fans suck out some of that air and ventilation happens. We do have a small ventilation system for the carbon dioxide. That was not turned on. I don't know why. We turned it on and it dropped everything down to pretty close to safe levels. Then I opened the, I installed a emergency exit door in the basement. And once I opened that, it dropped right down to super safe levels, like outdoors. So we felt we could ferment properly if we opened that one exit door that goes up a set of stairs. It's an emergency exit.
so I guess the question I have, Bill, it's for you, is what is the requirement? You know, I'm thinking of my own house now. I have a boiler in it, right? And I know when the boiler fires, I have a power venter, which prevents that carbon monoxide from building up in the house. These mechanisms that he's talking about all seem to be manual and have a manual intervention, no automation. What is the requirement in this situation to properly vent?
Yes, so in this situation, you know, you would typically look for a ventilation system, probably with a positive charge to it, not a negative charge. So you want to push air into the area and then also exhaust it, you know, but you want to have a positive pressure, not a negative pressure. Okay, but also we got to take care of, you know, if there's any type of actuated system when something's fired. That's what we're kind of looking into right now, the requirements for the system. Some of the stuff is leading us towards OSHA, you know, workplace levels and everything like that, parts per million, you know, what's a safe low level limit and a high threshold for, you know, what's the maximum level.
So Christy, is there educate me here, is there a brewer's license, a liquor license, and a victual license?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
But we don't do the brewer's license.
No, state does.
State does.
And just so common vic is kind of your food
Right.
license. Alcohol, of course, is that.
Right, right.
and do we know, as part of the state's brewer's license, if there's a physical on-site inspection? They don't, they just ask for some paperwork?
Yeah.
I mean,
My understanding is CO2 is like CO. It dissipates into the air evenly. No, it doesn't go low, go high. It goes everywhere.
Seems
So
to be far more dangerous.
Displaces oxygen.
it displaces oxygen, right? So for lack of a better word, the whole restaurant is in danger when that cellar fills with CO2. So that's my concern.
I mean, there are detectors down there, but this is all brand new to me, but
yeah.
I'll do whatever is asked. It's eye-opening.
But we don't have the authority to ask him to discontinue brewing operations.
Right.
Until the system is functioning in a way that doesn't.
well, I mean, I guess I don't want to, but in the interest of public safety, can we not?
Well, I think the detector is
I mean,
My understanding
I
was
know
that-
that's not the matter before us. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm looking for a way that says, you know, if the problems related directly to the restaurant can be fixed in a reasonable time frame, then, you know, obviously things have to happen for the liquor license by 3 p.m. December 31st.
Right.
In the same sort of extension that was offered to Tavolino for the restaurant.
Right.
But if the CO2 situation because of the brewery is making the restaurant unsafe,
Exactly.
then if the brewery is going to be in operation, I would be very uncomfortable having people in the building at all.
But I guess the way it goes back to the question, it sounds like what was required under our inspection was to have the calibrated CO2, which wasn't there, which has been done, which sounds like that passes what we need from an inspection standpoint. Now, it sounds like we want to do more. What I heard was you're willing to do more once this is
I
figured
would love
out.
to work with the fire department because, I mean, it's a total learning experience for me, and I think it is to some degree for them. I mean, they scared me, I'll tell you that much.
I'm just astounded, honestly, that this situation can exist, that brewing in a cellar where a known substance is created during the fermentation process, there isn't a requirement before you begin that process to account for those gases in anything other than a manual way. That to me just is astounding that there's not an automated mechanism. I mean, there's not an automated requirement or requirement for
We could
automated
just
mechanism.
leave the exhaust fans on in the basement.
Well, I mean, again, I'll go back to my boiler scenario. My boiler fires automatically. There's a power venter that vents out those gases. So as soon as your fermentation turns on, it turns on your gas. I don't know what the technology is, but I would expect some sort of mechanism to be in place so it's not relying up to you or anybody on your staff to go down there and open a door.
And we're not familiar with the state regulations.
Exactly.
For the brewery, where we can't say whether the state actually requires that or not, because they're not.
I think initially they were involved in the build-out of it. An inspector came out from somewhere in Western Mass.
So, Kevin, when this was identified, this CO2 issue, like, I mean, how long are we talking? Talking a week ago, 2 days ago? How long? About a week ago. All right, so have you or any member of your team reached out to the state licensing board to ask about kind of how to address this?
Okay. I'm learning.
Yeah.
We had everything in place. I didn't realize we had to calibrate it. Makes perfect sense to me now.
Yep.
And that's been done. That was done.
Yeah, it was done. And, it will go off, if the CO2 level gets too high to a dangerous level.
Is this your only place where you brew beer?
We brought that brewery over from Natick.
So an alarm goes off, right?
Yep.
You're in the middle of business hours, busy evening. Somebody's got to go down and open a door,
Well,
right? Is that how it works?
let-
I'm just curious.
Let me ask, like, I'm getting way in the weeds here, but
No,
when the alarm, no, it's a great question. Just wanted to add to your question. The alarm goes off, who hears it? You're running a
Right.
restaurant.
No, you can hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
So let me cut to the chase here, because we have our two safety officials here. My question to you is, under these circumstances, is that building safe with brewing operations?
Not in my opinion. Like Bill said, 2 sources of ventilation, one pushing fresh air in, one pushing stale air out.
Yeah.
So I think related to the licenses in front of you, that the question maybe is, would they be issued a certificate of inspection given this issue?
Right.
I'm still on the fence on that one.
Because you're still looking
Because-
into it.
Yeah.
Because of what?
We're researching this right now.
But I guess to the other piece is we're researching it, so something can't be done. I guess where I'm concerned is absolutely we have to be safe. I'm going to listen to you to be safe. We're also interested in businesses and keeping you running a business, but it has to be safe.
Sure.
I guess my question here is, from the certificate of inspection that for him to run the business, which has a liquor license that expires on December 31st, is there the ability to get the certificate of inspection based on things that have been fixed to date while we work through some of this other stuff to put that in, with agreement that, again, comes back in front of us
Well, I think isn't it the other way around? Isn't it?
I wouldn't imagine that either department would sign off on a certificate of inspection.
But if we provide it, I mean, I guess,
It's the other way around, though. I mean, I would expect that the certificate of inspection, just like we did for the previous business owner, that the licenses are contingent on that certificate of inspection. They have a valid license through the end of this year. If they get it rectified, and Bill has an answer that he feels comfortable with by the end of the year, then they'll get their certificate of inspection, which then allows them to have their licenses.
well, just, I'll use an example. So we are today, and they come back and we decide on, we come back and say, okay, December 28th, hey, we found a situation. You've got 3 days to purchase, install, get it in so we can get your license. I mean, my thing is that, A, is that doable? B, is that fair to the business?
Well, right now, in theory, Bill could find that, our building inspector could find that the current situation is suitable. They don't need to do anything.
I mean,
Could I ask a
Honestly,
question?
that's an option.
Was it an option that you extended the existing license till January, whatever the date was?
Only for the conference.
Only for the
not
food.
For the
The liquor license is the issue here, is we can't extend that
Okay,
past.
There's two separate licenses. I have a pub brewer's license, and I have a liquor license. This
And you
board
have a
grants.
victualler license for food.
Right,
Yep.
so if we have an issue with the ventilation, then, you know, I think I should still be allowed to sell beer and alcohol, just not brew beer.
not brew beer. Not brew.
Yeah, as you said, not brew.
Right.
Well, which we have no control over telling you that you can't brew. The issue is this: you've got CO2 in the building. You've got a manual system
No, but we can.
to ventilate it.
We can.
Can what?
He understands that. I think we can say,
No
can't-
fermenting.
we were only giving
He
you.
can't, he can't brew, ferment beer until this matter is resolved to
Yeah.
address the public safety
Right.
issue. I mean, I think that's.
I agree.
I didn't think
It
it was
may
under
be
our
resolved
authority.
now, but we're not certain.
But
I didn't think it was under our authority.
with this issue outstanding, would you still provide a certificate of annual inspection?
I think they're trying to figure that out. So I think what it seems like, and Chief and Bill, you can jump in, but there are certain requirements under the certificate of inspection. They're trying to determine if this issue is something that they can withhold a certificate of
Right.
inspection for. Right. If they, is that right? Does that sound right? Please.
So, my at least preliminary research that I've done and what I've known, kind of looked at previously from like Cold Harbor, we had some type of similar situation. Things tend to point to OSHA workplace regulations and everything like that, with low-level parts per million over 8 hours compared to a high level for 10 minutes, you know? So OSHA tends to call out certain numbers and everything like that. For me to say it specifically fits this situation, that's what we're trying to
Right.
kind of gather in.
Right. But the question and you probably, it sounds like you don't know the answer, so it's fine.
Yep.
But is this issue within or outside of the certificate of inspection? If it's outside of the certificate of inspection, I would expect that under either or both of your authority, you would have to deal with it outside of the licensing. Does that sound right?
I understand what you're saying.
Yes, I just don't want to overlook the other issues with the fire alarm.
Right.
No,
That does affect.
Well, I think the other two that you talked about, going back to that, I mean, this one was concerning because it sounded like this is life and death here. But I was trying to get to that point. I think the other two that were there, and I guess that going back to my question, is those have been identified. It sounds like there's been discussions. Do you believe that those are things that can be rectified before the end of the year? The fire alarm issue and the duct detector.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And are those the only two pieces, Pat, from your
Yes, sir.
side? Okay.
We've been getting false alarms on those two pieces.
Yeah. So I would think on that side, I mean, similar to before, it's something that has to be, those have to be rectified to have the license
Yep.
approved.
Minimally, right. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I agree.
Right, and then we need Bill's certificate of inspection.
Right, but I think it goes back to Christie's question about
So-
I guess I don't know if we have an answer. I mean, I think it's.
Wait, though, sorry, Chrissy, those are those two items. Are there any items, Bill, in your world, other than the fermenting, that are still open?
I think there was a couple exit signs that we had to check out, but I mean, those are
Okay, some
easy
exit
fixes.
signs, okay.
Okay, I guess I'm comfortable providing the conditional release of the license. And even though we probably don't have the jurisdiction, but request that fermenting halt until there's confirmation and our fire chief and our building inspector are comfortable that the fermenting operation meets state safety regulations and there's proper ventilation.
I'm happy to overstep our boundaries for public safety.
No, I am
Like,
too.
And
I am
I
too.
appreciate
And I'm
what you're
asking-
saying as well.
I just want to be clear on one thing, like, I appreciate that, but like, if we go in there and we find high CO2 or low O2, we're shutting it down.
Right.
Like, there's no, I don't walk a high wire act every day to not make decisions, like,
Right.
I'll make that decision and close them down like that.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. That's why I'm glad that calibrated CO2 detector is in the basement now, and if we go there and we find that again, we'll be back here, because we're not gonna put the public in danger.
Is there,
Yeah,
is there a
I-
log or history on that CO2 detector? Or do you get any data from it, from like spikes or periods of times?
Yeah, I don't think there's a printout on it. I think it's a display, right? On yours.
Display.
I'm curious, though, it might be able to do that.
Because
You have to research the
Yeah, yeah,
manufacturer. We deal
you
with so
know,
many different brands, like, I
I'm
don't
just
remember what he has.
very concerned. I mean, I think that the mechanisms are in place here to allow our staff to go provide the certificate of occupancy if it's appropriate. And if Bill finds out in his research that it's appropriate, then we have that check mark and we can move forward.
I can tell you that Bill and Darab Fadavi, who works for me, have been working and researching this for about a day. It's just been back and forth with phone calls with the state, trying to figure it out. I think brewing is, yes, it's an old art, but it's like really newly popular, and we're still finding our way through that. But if it's a dangerous situation, we are going to close it.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say I'm comfortable that since the chief is concerned that it's going to get handled, and I'm willing to provide the temporary approval based on inspection.
Well, yeah, and what it comes back to, and I think to that point, if it's not safe, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, really, if between now and the end of the year, we get the certificate of inspection, then we would release licenses. The question for the board really is whether or not you're comfortable allowing the convict to roll to January if the certificate of inspection has not been received by December 31st.
And that would be the same thing as we just did for
Talina.
So January 14th?
When your next meeting.
Well, I guess go back to the question, and this was confusing because of CO2. The other items we're talking about here, which is the fire alarm and the duct.
And the exit signs
And the exit signs, the things that, are those, in your opinions, life safety issues that we should not extend? And that basically we shouldn't extend the common vic's license beyond the end of the year till our next meeting.
No, I think you can. I think just because if the panel's an alarm or it's in trouble and another device goes off, it's still gonna retrip the alarm and it's gonna just redispatch us there again. So even though it's technically disabled, it's still function. The parts that aren't disabled, the components that aren't disabled are still gonna function and notify the fire department that there's an issue there.
Which is cost, and they could be.
What's the cost on our
responding
side for?
Well, yeah, it could be a cost on someone else's when they're dispatched to essentially a false alarm and someone else needs help.
Which is actually, to go full circle, why we're trying to encourage people to program their duct detectors to go to the managers and not the fire department, because those aren't fires.
Right.
But it picks up like dust and debris and
Sure.
whatever's in their system. So we're trying to reduce our call volume, reduce nuisance calls.
So I mean, I'm supportive of the contingent approval, but Kevin, I have to say, and I appreciate it, I remember when you were here before and the 84,000, and that's a big number for a business. I can't express to you that it's pretty frustrating that we're here in December having this conversation, right? So, so.
Yeah, I mean, the false alarms, probably 4 of them have been in the last 2 weeks, so we do have the alarm company. They put it into trouble so that they could get a new detector in there. They needed a particular part.
Yeah.
They said, we'll have it in 2 days, and I called them, between 2 and 7 days.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
that means it'll be in by the end of the week, if not Monday. So that takes care of the false alarm issue. We were also told to put it into supervisory, so if there's a duct thing goes off, a duct smoke goes off, we're contacted and not the fire department. We'll check it out. And again, every time we turn the heat on, dust particles are in the vents. That's what's setting off the alarm. I imagine the fire department gets these when they start turning the heat on
Yeah.
throughout the town. I don't know.
So, is it, one of the items that was mentioned, you just brought it up, but it was on my list here, is that the last couple of calls the chief said that they went to, there were no managers on service. So if the system is alerting someone, but there's no manager on premises,
There's always a manager on premises.
Okay.
Today, the manager's father-in-law, his heart stopped, so he had to leave around 5:36, but he came back around 8.
Yeah.
I mean, these
it's
things
life.
happen. Monday, there was someone there from 10:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the morning. You know, sometimes he has to go to the bank.
Well, so, but I guess if there's an alert that's going to a supervisor or manager, is that going to someone offsite or going to someone on-site?
They have on-site numbers and 2 cell phone numbers.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So, you've been running a brewery for several years.
Yep.
So,
12th brewery in the state, so since 1996.
So issues about understanding what the rules are as far as calibration of equipment and operation of proper ventilation. It's concerning that it's such a learning experience for you after so many years. And I know regulations change and it's hard to keep up, but that's part of the responsibility of holding that license from the state and operating the business.
Yeah.
If you've got enough dust in your ear vents to trigger detectors, then those ear vents should have been cleaned already. So that's not an issue. And I guess I'm concerned that we potentially had situations where people at your bar and at your restaurant were in danger because of CO2 levels coming up from the basement and not aware of it. And so, it's torn. We don't want to shut down a business, but I think at this point, until there's agreement that the brewery's actually
Can we suspend brewery operations?
Yeah, I think if we suspend, if you're willing to, we can't order it.
Well,
but if you're willing to
I volunteer to suspend brewery operations till the 3 of us can figure out what the best solution.
I appreciate that. And then I'm comfortable moving forward with the conditional release of the license.
And the common victual until?
And the common vic to June 14th.
Yes.
January 14th.
Okay.
That would be as well.
Okay.
Second.
I mean, I appreciate everyone's time here and the good exchange of information. Oh, Chief.
Just want to make sure I'm not missing something, so we're still going to do the liquor license for the bar?
Yes.
If he passes.
Until
If he
December
passes.
31st.
Okay.
Yep.
Just making sure we're.
If it passes, if not,
And
it
then
doesn't
it
get
doesn't
extended beyond, so it's conditional on that passing.
Right.
Which includes basically now the voluntary, and we very much appreciate that. We want to
Yes.
get it fixed because that is a concern, but the other stuff gets done, the signs, the alarm, the vent sensor, supervisory mode, whatever, so that, and anything else that you as inspectors need to do, so it gets a certificate of inspection, our conditional approval keeps the liquor license, the common vic till the next meeting, but again, similar to what we have with Tavolino's, if that stuff is, we won't need you for the common vic, it probably is something we're gonna wanna see back just related to the brewery, cause again, you probably don't wanna suspend brewery operations.
But can I say this? Suspending brewery operations, what I mean is suspending all fermenting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And I just want to say that's assuming that they're comfortable signing off on the on the certificate of inspection with that outstanding issue.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, still is back on them agreeing to that and inspecting and actually making sure everything's in compliance.
So I know you said seconded, but I'd actually like to get a real motion here because we really didn't have a motion.
So I move to release the 2025 liquor license liquor license for Owen O'Leary's Restaurant and Brew Pub at 17 Connector Road, contingent on the business passing an annual inspection and being issued a certificate of inspection, and that being provided to the town by 3 p.m. December 31st. And further, to release the common victual license or victual permit for the establishment contingent on the business passing an annual inspection and being issued a certificate of inspection.
But that's
I think you wanted to, I think you wanted to extend the
By
common victualler.
By June, by January 14th,
Second.
2025.
Motion, second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Just get it fixed.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Can I make one more comment?
Yes,
Yes,
sure.
please.
Please do.
Sorry, just for the purposes of the minutes, so you hear us come before you oftentimes with people with hydrant issues, private hydrants not being inspected, just for a learning experience, so we don't have to do this next year. You're tied to the Extended Stay America, who's your landlord, correct? Those hydrants expire in April, so when you come back next year, the private hydrants have to be tested before then. I just wanted to put that in the
Yes.
minutes so it's not a
So you
learning
remember that.
experience.
Yeah, I remember that was an
Recommend I
issue.
call extended stay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Christie, can
Don't
we
forget
get,
that one.
And they're here.
One more thing.
can we get a email or something?
Update.
I'd update on this somehow over, as things progress.
Yeah.
I'd like to just make sure we're aware of how these things
Thank you
go.
very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
let's move on. Let's go to Extended Stay America Suites, 180 East Main Street. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate you being here tonight.
No problem, thank you. My name's Tony Stady. I'm the general manager at the Extended Stay America at 180 East Main Street. And I just made a note to tell Ryan about the April inspection for the hydrants.
Thank you.
So,
Please do that.
yeah. All right, so
Excuse me, are you also here on behalf of the other two?
no, they were told they didn't have to come today because their inspections for some reason don't expire until April of 2025. I don't know.
That's because they had none of the paperwork ready in time last year, and we extended it for 4 months. While they went through the process of making the necessary repairs to the building, the fire system, and the fire hydrants.
He's only a few moments down the road. He's staying at my site right now because he's been working a 24-hour shift. You want me to give him a
No,
quick
no, they don't need to be here
If they
tonight.
don't need to be here, they don't need to be
But it's
here.
interesting
But
that's off-site
that,
now.
that's why their inspections are 4 months off cycle, is because last year at this time, representing all 3 properties, your company was before us, and his response was he'd only been made manager in August and had no idea he was responsible for taking care of this.
Right, okay.
And so, and promised that you guys would never be before us again.
I see, okay.
And here you are.
So I think for those that are,
I wasn't not in compliance last year, so this is new
So
to
we're
me.
talking about 180 East.
We're talking about 180
Yes.
East Main Street.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
I would say for the other two, just again, as you wrote down on the private hydrant for inspection.
Yep.
Knowing that those are due April 30th, and knowing that the time delays we had last year, is
Actually,
your
it's
mind that they
April
should.
9th.
April 9th, that they should be working on those right now to make sure that
Right, it's not an issue.
any paperwork they need and inspections they need are there in time, because we really
I got
do
you.
not want them in front of us again.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got
Thank
you.
you.
All right,
Okay.
now back to me.
Okay.
So if you can share with us what's going on.
I was informed by our business and licensing group that they had mailed all the applications together in one envelope, but evidently you don't have their other applications in, because you said that was, I thought that mine was just missed, but because theirs was approved until April, but now I understand that that's not the case. So I've been working with our licensing group. You know, as far as the building inspections, we've been having lots of inspections because we did have deficiencies with our fire panels. And we had all those replaced, and I've had, you know, the fire inspector in multiple times to be sure everything was up to par with that, as well as the state elevator inspector and everything. And we currently have a date now on January 2nd for the certificate of inspection, I believe. Is that correct?
What was the date?
January 2nd, yeah, for the state, for them to do the building inspector. Yeah, I'm just at a loss. I thought I had everything covered, and somehow I didn't. So I would have to find out how we can avoid this in the future, because I thought everything was all set, and it wasn't.
Thank you. Chief or
Yeah, I'd love to
Bill,
hear
is there anything
what
you'd like
the-
to add, or other color you can provide?
Bill Haslett, Building Commissioner. Well, Tony, we've never had really any big issues in that building or anything like that. You know, it's been consistent, you know, might have exit sign out, emergency light out, typical things and everything like that. Definitely behind the ball and overlooked. Usually with hotels, I'm chasing things down during the year, especially with hotels. I just like to be on top of those. Might have just, you know, missed, you know, chasing, you know, you down or something like that.
But just, Bill, excuse me, it's not your responsibility to chase. But I know
no,
I'm not
I
your boss.
understand.
Well, ultimately maybe, but
Yeah.
it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but
so now-
we've had good.
Can I ask you what time of year I should be looking at getting the inspection done?
I would start getting paperwork in September, right? And then we can get you on the schedule early.
Excuse me, so you received the renewal package at the end of October, and with directives to contact the department for the inspection.
But I forwarded those on to my
Right.
business and licensing group.
Yeah.
Not knowing that,
Right.
that I was supposed to be the actual one doing that.
Well, they're welcome to come before our board anytime. You can have them fly up. We'd love to see them. No, I'm serious. So I appreciate that you have a process and you forwarded them to your licensing group or your renewal group. Perhaps you should pass on the message from this board. They are welcome to come to this meeting. I'm actually
It's their
serious.
responsibility, not yours.
If it's ever, you know what I mean? If they have delegated responsibility, then they should appreciate the importance of being before here. So so your name is on the hook, right?
I'll take on the responsibility
Okay.
to deal with it.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So I'm unclear, Bill, what are the things that are outstanding, and are they different than the questions for Chief? Are they life-threatening?
Typically in this building, we haven't had many big issues or anything like that. They've always been consistently maybe an exit sign here, emergency light out there, stuff like that.
I think the difference here is that
We haven't had an inspection yet.
hasn't been done.
You haven't, yeah, that is correct. We
Because
haven't
it
done the
was
inspection
not
yet.
scheduled on time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So now it's scheduled for the 2nd of January.
Okay.
Okay, and this is just the innkeeper hotel permit. There is no other licenses at this location.
And I will state that any of the deficient, like the lights out.
Come on over to the speaker, microphone,
Yes,
please.
So I will point out that any of the, they did find a couple of emergency lights that need to be replaced and stuff when they did the inspections, and those were resolved before they came back for the inspection. So those have all been addressed.
Okay.
That was last year. Yeah.
No, it was this summer when we did the fire upgrade. They came through and checked everything as well. Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I know that they were testing every summer.
But I guess the question, so we have not had an inspection.
Right.
It's scheduled for January 2nd.
That's correct.
Are there concerns with us, in essence, extending the existing innkeeper hotel permit to our January meeting, or is it subject to, I guess, do we extend it to the 2nd?
I mean, if you extend it and there's a life safety issue, they'll get shut down.
Okay.
I expect. So, yes.
Yes.
So,
So we can extend it if we,
if you want to.
and they would shut it down if
And then they
necessary.
would handle it if there was a life safety issue.
So in keeping with our process so far, we've heard from Bill and the chief on every entity coming before us. Chief Purcell, are there concerns to your knowledge, understanding the inspection hasn't taken place right now that exists that impact life safety? Major concerns?
One thing, you should work on this before we show up. This family's living in the hotels, and a lot of them have removed screens from the windows, upper floors. You should make sure the screens are back in the windows before a child falls out.
Justin, I do inspect safety inspections on a regular basis, and there's a window locks that stop them from opening. But we will get the screens on in addition to that. I didn't realize that was a safety issue.
Okay. Any further questions, comments?
So it sounds like no, if we extend, when you go in the inspection, if it's something that's,
something happens.
it's gonna be shut
they're
down
gonna take
before that
action
anyways.
We would communicate that.
Yes. Yes. I know you would.
So I would move to release the 2025 hotel innkeeper's license for Extended Stay America at 180, might not say it right.
Extending it.
I'm sorry.
We're not
I would
issuing a new one.
I would move to extend the release of the 2025. Am I not saying
Just
this right?
extend the 2024 to January 14th.
Right.
Yes.
Can someone else say it? 'Cause I'm
Move to
clearly not
extend the
saying it right.
2024 hotel innkeeper's license for Extended Stay America Suites at 180 East Main Street, contingent on the business passing an annual inspection and being issued a certificate, no. Just
Until our,
extending it
until our January 14th meeting.
until January 14th, 2025.
I'm glad it
Yes.
wasn't just me.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
It's confusing.
Needs to
All
be
those in
corrected.
favor? Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Bill. That was the last one, I think, right? Yep. All right. Moving on to
Thank both of you for being here.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you both.
thank you very
Wait,
much.
wait. Moving on to issues and correspondence of the select board, including but not limited to upcoming events, local achievements and acknowledgements, board committee liaisons reports, and requested future agenda items. Anyone like to go first? Sure.
Okay, two quick things. I was able to attend live. I watched a relatively short meeting from the Worcester Regional Transit Authority as they're looking at what to do for public transit within Shrewsbury, Northborough, and Westborough. It's something I'd asked about in issues and correspondence earlier, and so I just want to say there is a plan, and it appears the current plan right now is that Shrewsbury would become one system, sort of, and Westborough, Northborough, another division, but it would also include expanding the hours of the VIA service on weekdays and adding Saturday hours as well. And that's sort of the direction that they appear to be heading in.
Via, it would be separate in Shrewsbury, and then
So
Westborough, Northborough would be a separate
There'd be
via?
a service area for Shrewsbury and one for Northborough, Westborough. They'd expand the area of coverage in Northborough, Westborough. It would no longer go to the Southborough train station, but would still go to the Westborough train station. And they're looking at extending the hours later in the evening on weekdays and adding hours on Saturday. And that's sort of the direction. There's still more in the process, but
Well, they've been
it's not
doing
final.
public engagement, and I know that our planning department has sent stuff out to
Yeah.
let everyone know about, because the public engagement is going to result in the consultant coming up with a plan. So that's, so the board as individuals is welcome to participate in all of those engagement sessions.
but it's, I'm much.
So there's
I'm
another
much
step
more-
to this, or
I'm
this
much-
was the plan?
Well, it's not the
Because I
plan.
did attend one of those sessions.
It was the direction that was sort of talked about, is where their thinking is right now, based on the engagement to date, which just makes me a little more optimistic than I was 3 weeks ago when I asked about what was happening there. The second thing I have is, we all know Henry J. Roche, or Hank, for his service to Westborough, not just advisory finance committee. He's a current member of the Housing Trust and has held many other board positions, but I am honored to work with him in a number of ways and to announce to the community that Habitat for Humanity of Worcester County and Metro West has created a Spirit of Service Award in his name. Wow. And he is the first recipient of that award. He joined Habitat for Humanity in October 2004 as a construction crew member, worked his way up to supervise it, held positions on a number of their committees, served on their board in a number of different positions for over 12 years. He also initiated efforts to create a finance committee and institutionalize board of director governance and sustainable management policies and practices. In part due to his volunteer leadership during his tenure as an affiliate of Habitat for Humanity, their capacity to deliver homes has gone from 1 to 2, one home every 1 to 2 years, and they're now on track to be delivering 10 homes per year across the communities they serve. And so the award is a service award that will recognize future outstanding volunteers for Habitat Humanity Metro West Greater Worcester. And there are some pretty intense qualification requirements that he meets. And I just want to congratulate him for his broad service to our community, his long-term commitment to that service, and for the recognition he's received from Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you, Alan. Glad you brought that to us. Anyone else?
I go next.
Sure.
I have nothing this evening.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, you wanna go?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Oh,
See you in January.
Wow. All right, I'll bring the whole group down. A couple items here. So Council on Aging recently met. I want to thank both Christy and Kim for kind of taking that group and kind of shepherding them now that we, with Alma's retirement. Alma was very involved in helping to kind of run those meetings along with the chair. So it was great to get some updates from staff at that meeting as to kind of what they're working on. I think there was really deep appreciation from the council members, kind of actually hearing directly from staff members, like all the things that were happening. So that was great. Those meetings are recorded by Westborough TV, so people can watch them. And again, I think that that's really created some great interest. Side note from that, there's one of the members, and I forget her name right now. I can picture her. She's lives over at Del Webb Lake Chauncey. They have a group that meets that may be a future Bagels with the Board kind of opportunity. I talked with her offline. There may be some interest in just having kind of a member of the select board drop in at one of their meetings every now and again. So stay tuned on that. Cable TV Advisory Committee, just to reiterate what was shared earlier, we are in active negotiations with Charter. Our contract, actually, the town's contract has actually expired at this point, but it kind of, because we're in active negotiations, that contract remains in place even though it's expired. There are about 885 current Charter subscribers. Charter, there are some issues with non-compliance with the past contract, and we're obviously negotiating to try to get that match on the Verizon to bump it up to 5%. So stay tuned on that. Hope to have some information maybe by the end of the year, but that would be for our next select board meeting. Hockomock Pond Committee is really in limbo, and I think maybe at a future board meeting, this board should determine kind of next steps for that committee. I don't want to pull the rug out from that committee, but at this point, we had a group of us had a call with DEP, meaning a group of us, several town staff members. Christy was there, Jen Miller from Conservation, myself, Fred Leonardo, and I think that was it. DPW. That was it. DEP and EPA were represented, and basically we're trying to get clarity on the 5-year report that was issued that had some, to us, red flags to them, it was like, well, it just kind of happens. And I'm just obviously loosely paraphrasing exactly the end. We're like, that just doesn't match. So really, until this is sorted out around the building and the odors and just kind of lots of other questions, I think that it would be better to suspend or just dissolve that reuse committee until we have more information. Right now, everyone's in limbo. They're like, what's going on? So we can decide that at a future board meeting, but I think we should bring that to a close. And then finally, a bit of a point of frustration to share, and unfortunately we always come back to this, is animal control. Not our animal control officer, but people are actively meeting at Veterans Freedom Park. They have dog groups. They post them on Facebook. There's a dog group, and they're meeting 3 p.m. They post their times, and dogs are up there running around off leash. And if you read our bylaws, Article 38, Section 2, letter D, and then Section 4, it specifically talks about dogs must be securely restrained by collar or leash or a functioning e-collar. I think it's time to bring our animal control officer back and get an update as to what's going on up there, because I have received complaints by many people in the community who want to go up there and walk. And I love dogs. I've got 3 of them who do not feel comfortable. And as I'm sure some people are responsible and they're willing to control their dog by e-collar when they're running up to joyously greet someone, but that is largely not the case. And some people are just scared, and I'm sorry, but it is not a dog park. We're building one, but it is not one now. And I'm honestly, the blatant act of the individuals doing this is, they're breaking the law. I don't know how else to say it. And I think we have a responsibility as a board to deal with it before someone gets hurt. So,
thank you for bringing that to our attention. I have nothing, so I will.
Sorry.
You want to add something? Okay.
On Thursday at 6 o'clock in this room is a community outreach meeting for the community center, specifically focusing on furniture and fixture concepts.
What time is that, Christy, please?
6 o'clock.
This Thursday?
This Thursday.
Where was that at again?
Here.
Oh, right here.
6 p.m.
You're up.
I will move to enter into executive session on Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, RE Ferris Development Group, LLC, versus Town of Westborough, Lax Media, LLC, and Lax Media Mass, LLC, Worcester Superior Court, CA number 2285CV01281. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, RE Town of Westborough versus Westborough SPE LLC, Boston Suffolk County Land Court, case number 19 TL 000768. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, RE Westborough SPE LLC versus Town of Westborough et al., U.S. District Court, CA number 4:23 CV12017-MRG. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Westborough SPE LLC, U.S. Bankruptcy Court, case number 23-40709. If the chair declares an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position. And under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to act under the authority of the Select Board to approve executive session minutes of November 12th, 2024, November 19th, 2024, December 2nd, 2024, and December 3rd, 2024.
And I declare that an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating and negotiating position. May I get a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Edinburgh, yes?
Johnson, yes.
Marshall, yes.
Keo, yes.
And Welch, yes. Thank you again to Westborough TV. Hope everyone has a happy, safe holiday season.